everyone, and welcome to another video. I am Simply G, and today I'm going to be talking about everything. Oh, so much stuff. So much stuff I got this month. I got manga, I got comics, I got actual novels, I got a figure, I got art books, I got fan art books. So much stuff. So today I'm going to be trialing out something where I talk about my newest debut stuff, followed by my manga-wise, then followed by stuff that's finished, followed by just my ongoing stuff, finishing up with the comics, light novels, and general novels as well. So hopefully giving it a little bit more structure than normal, but I'll just hope you guys enjoy. I'll get straight into it, and yeah, let's get cracking. Before I get into the books, I have a little bit of merchandise that I wanted to show off. The first being the man, the myth, the legend herself, is Lady Oscar. From Rose of Versailles. Not a character that just has a lot of figures, despite her immense popularity, and I do hope that one day we get a proper scale. But for now, this kind of little bit dodgy prize figure. She's very tall though, very big. Will have to do. And, you know, not the greatest figure of all time, admittedly, but I love her, and I'm happy to have her on my shelves. And happy to find her at a relatively decent price as well. So, yes, Oscar, thank you. Welcome home. And yeah, really, really, really happy to have her. Merchandise, we have this month's free what are you doing on your day off? So we have Momo on a bike, drinking bubble tea or some sort of drink, some sort of Starbucksy drink. And then, of course, the ocean picture. All of them have them standing at the ocean. And we have also Nitori, Aichiro, the good duckling boy, eating lunch and wearing some very nice pants, I must say. A little bit concerned he put his shirt on the wrong way, but regardless, look at that adorable cat bag. Yeah, love it. And of course, at the beach, go and just be looking at the beach. There's a hot air balloon. As always, the inside not super interesting. And again, big sucker for the free art merchandise. And then also we have almost last. There's one more coming. Last of last year's birthday art merch. So we have Asahi just living his life. April 18th. Happy birthday, good boy. And then what's the theme for this? Birthday decoration. There he is. Adorable little chibi version of himself. And then we have Ikuya, whose birthday is the day after mine. So he's automatically a good boy. I love his cake. The colors are great. And again, we have little chibi version. And again, I will always keep giving Kyoto Animation my money as long as they keep making merch for all of these boys, especially on their fake birthdays because they don't exist. And the thing is, I was finally free. I finally ordered the last of the, this stuff. No. They're doing more. They're doing more because we have another 2 years of this franchise at least. Because the final film was revealed to be 2 final films. And it has a hilarious subtitle. And, yeah. So I'm still in free hell. And I will continue to be there for the foreseeable future. Happy birthday, boys. So yeah, that's all of the free Kyoto Animation clear file merchandise that I got this month. We were finished with free merchandise? Absolutely we were not. And especially not Kyoto Animation, because they know that they can take my money and I will happily give it to them. So they recently released their newest illustration works, art book. So this is for the High Speed / Free Starting Days movie, collecting artwork from 2015 to 2017. So there was a big gap between this and like the Eternal Summer ones. And if you don't know anything about the illustration works, this is basically just all of the artwork that was used for merchandise and marketing and in magazines and on I don't know, other stuff, posters, weird crane games, so much lovely artwork. So much lovely artwork. And this is, of course, the High Speed movie. So it's my boys, the best boys, well, some of the best boys, this best boy, and these two, I'm sorry, all of the boys are best boys. We're not gonna discriminate here, but look at them, they're so cute. When they're in middle school and or primary school, because the movie has a brief mention of one of the original good boys, i.e., well, both the original good boys. Hello, Nagisa and Rei, who are a year younger, so they are little, even smaller babies. But yeah, so all of the merch, all of the artwork that was used for merch. See, look at them. Aren't they cute? Look at that. Look how small he is in comparison to what a baby. So yes, that's from the soundtrack. I know that because I own it. Again, stuck in free hell. Will continue to do so for the foreseeable forever. And yeah, Kyoto Animation, thank you. Thank you for knowing that if you make a pretty art book with all of your pretty art from your extremely pretty sports series, which, I mean, both of their pretty sports series are very pretty, I will buy it. I will buy it and you will get my money. Look at them. Anyway, yes. So happy to have that. I am now waiting for them to put out the Dive to the Future ones, which will come. Of course they will. And then the movie ones. And then whatever else. Because, again, I'm stuck in free hell. And I will be. I will be for years and years. So yeah. And this is still available on their website. If you're wanting to buy it, it's probably best to do so via a forwarding or proxy service. I use Zen Market, but there's a lot of other ones as well. So yeah, check it out. And yeah, probably not that interesting to anyone aside from me, but I don't care because this is my YouTube channel. I have some art books, fan art books, fanzines. Whatever they're called. Who knows what they're called. This one I discovered via Twitter when some people were sharing their pieces that they worked on. And I was like, hey, wait. I don't remember. No, maybe I just found it on Twitter when pre-orders opened. But I liked the idea. I thought it was cool, so I bought my own copy. And that is the Matchpoint Zine, which is a Haikyuu fanzine. But in the style of a magazine. And it's really cool. They've got this little... it's just like, it's got Bokuto fan card, or whatever it is. That you normally... I mean, it's like a baseball card, but for a volleyball boy. But she's thinking of it in the sense of, like, K-pop music albums, where you get just... the randomly selected photo. So yeah, they have a whole bunch of like fake articles interspersed with art, so it looks like an actual magazine. I thought it was pretty cool. And a lot of the art is like, oh yes, this is an advert for shoes, or for like, I don't know, what do boys wear? Watches, cologne, glasses. They have a bunch of coupons for fake things. And yeah, it's a good time. I think it's really sweet, and I do like fanzines when you get a whole range of, this is my favorite one. This is my favorite one, not only because Nekoma is great, but it's my favorite one. I also like the Mia twins fake interview with the Mia twins. But yeah, good times. I also like this one. It was overall really well put together little zine or fan art book, whatever they want to call it. And I think they pulled it off very well. It looks like an actual magazine. I mean, higher quality than your typical magazine, but the style and the idea, the execution of said idea was top notch. Good job, guys. Yeah, and I legitimately am like sad that this is the only one that's ever gonna come out, because I'm like, I wanna. What? There's at the beginning. There's like this. Oh, subscribe today. It's like, this is not real. We're not a subscription. I'm like, I would buy a subscription, but again, that's a lot of work for just a fun haha joke. So yeah, it was really good, and if I might put the I'll put the Twitter for it down in the description below. I don't know if they still have any copies, but they're probably still selling the PDF of this. Fanzine art book thing that I got this month was also Haikyuu themed, and also I loved and I discovered this one again on Twitter, but thanks to my good friend and mutual Rin, because this was a local fan book or art book to her. I think unlike the previous one that I showed off, which is like collaborative, a whole bunch of people worked on it and submit art, this is more like a doujin where it's a single artist working on it. And this is Niente. I'm really bad with my Vietnamese, so apologies. I think not Solace, something along those lines is what the actual title is in English. And this again comes with like really cool extras. There's stickers and little things, and there's all these little art card. This is, I think, personal card. And another art card. I bought this off of their Etsy store. There's their contact details. Give their stuff a look. And sticker. But look how cool this is, and they're so high quality. Is the like fake tickets to go see the Misby Black Jackals and the Schweden Alders. Look how cool, and they've got the like serrated there. Oh, it's cool. It's super cool, and yeah, it's just a collection of haiku artwork that this particular artist has put together, and I really liked it. I saw Rin got her copy, and I was like, I want to try. This looks really good, and I got it, and it's really good. So yeah, well, I mean, understandably pricey, because one, it's COVID. Two, Vietnam's not that far from where I am, but also it is far from where I am, so I expected it to be pricey. It's totally worth it, man. Totally worth it. It says in the back. Serene. Serene is the translation of the title. I knew I was somewhat close. So yeah, not so many like hot-blooded action spiking shots or anything. It's more just the day-to-day of these characters. But it's nice, and if the art looks appealing, and if it sounds interesting, and if you're a haiku fan, get your own copy. I'll again put the link in the description below if you're wanting your own copy. On to the manga. We have a bunch of debuts, as well as some single volume stuff. So I think I'll do the single volume completed in one volume things first. The first being Hara's Curse by Asuka Konishi. This is put out by Vertical, one of the last that they put out under their Vertical Comics imprint, which is now just Kodansha. This is the story of two people after the death of the younger sister of this girl, the untimely death of her sister. She, the older sister, and her sister's fiance get closer and fall in love, and obviously there's a lot of mixed feelings about that, a lot of anguish, a lot of guilt, but also a lot of growing from sad circumstance and finding support in each other, and finding independence as well is a huge one, because not only are the two sisters very codependent, and especially the older one relies on having to look after her younger sister to kind of define herself, but we also have this male character finding independence outside of his family's influence and choices for the first time when making the decision to date the older sister, really the one he had an interest in for the entirety of the time, but wasn't assertive enough to admit to himself. It's really, really, really good. Heart-wrenching and complicated, but just done with great nuance. I really enjoyed this one. I hope we see more from Asuka Konishi. I know that there's other series that she's working on, or a series that she's working on that's very well regarded in Japan, so I would expect, hopefully, if this one does well in English, we may see one of her longer titles come to English in some capacity, whether that be digital or in print. I'm not fussy, I know some people are, but this was really, really great, and I think it really brings into question, or brings to the forefront, all the various types of love. Obviously romantic love, but also familial love, platonic love, love for siblings, love for family and parents, and the relationships, the many forms that love takes as well, and also how toxic love can be. Yeah, it's really, really, really good, and I highly encourage you to check it out if you haven't. It's wonderful. It is a single volume. It's also kind of a continuation, so I'm maybe cheating here, but we have My Alcoholic Escape from Reality by Nagi Takabi. This is the most recent of Kabi's memoir pieces about her mental health and personal struggle, and just her life and how she processes the various parts of it. Comparatively to my lesbian experience with loneliness and my solo exchange diary, this is more so about her hospitalization after her alcoholism has affected her physical body to a point in which she realizes, well, yes, there's definitely something wrong here, and I'm not in a good spot, and my health is absolutely deteriorated, but she has used alcohol as a coping mechanism for so long. So, and it's actually exploring a period in her time when a lot of people would be like at the height of their careers and happiness levels and things like that, because this actually takes place when she's won her Harvey Award for My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness, a very notable English comics award. And like with all of Kabi's works, this is a hard piece to read. Like, it's confronting. It's very much in your face with her problems, more so in order for her to process them, I think. It's not meant to be like a woe is me story. It's not meant to be like, oh, feel sympathetic or empathetic to me because, you know, my life is so hard. You do feel sympathetic and empathetic towards Kabi, and honestly I would say that majority, if not everyone reading, wants her to get help, to get the support, to find the happiness that she so desperately is looking for and so desperately needs. But it is a very raw, in-your-face look at addiction and struggle and toxic coping mechanisms and the unhealthy relationships that people have with their work, with alcohol and other substances, with their body as well. So it's just, yeah, tough read. Not for everyone. Littered with trigger warnings, as is all of her books, right? But still very, very, very good. And we have her newest book also licensed. Not sure that things are going much better, but I do hope that things are on the upward sliding of the scale. And she has been, I think over the course of the series, you see her proactively try to take care of herself more so than she was doing initially. And in writing these memoirs, it's part of her processing of that and coming to terms with that and taking those steps to recognize, like, yes, I can't ignore this. I am actually recognizing that there's problems in my life. That I do have the power to try and help and make better. So yeah. Tough read, but good read. Maybe a standalone. Maybe a volume 1. There's no one on it, but I do think this is maybe ongoing in Japan. Who knows? I guess we'll find out. Either way, it works. It qualifies. But this is After School Hanako-kun by Aida Iro. This is a comedy side story collection of chapters of just funny stuff, hijinksy stuff, various adventures going on with our cast of characters from the original Toilet Bound Hanako-kun manga. There's a chapter where some of the characters get sick. There's a chapter where some of the characters switch genders. There's a chapter where our protagonist turns into a muffle, which is one of these little bunny things. It's just a fun, goofy, silly time. If you enjoy the original series, and you enjoyed the comedy of the original series, this is a very fun little addition. It reminds me, it's in a similar vein to Noragami Stray Stories, which is another like side story collection volume, which has a number 1 on it, but that's the only volume we've ever gotten. So it's kind of the opposite problem with this one. I don't know what's going on. Who knows? But this was a fun addition, spin-off for a series that I really love, without any of the like heart-thumping, super tense, super anticipatory dread that you get from the main series, along with all the fun and silliness and goofiness. So yeah, if you're a fan of the original series, you should probably enjoy this one, unless you just really do hate the humor, which, I don't know, maybe the original series isn't for you, because there's a lot of humor in that, and I personally find it very funny. But maybe you don't, which is fine. That's totally okay. But if you are not a fan of the comedy in the manga and or anime, then maybe give this one a skip. It's not for you. It doesn't have the mystery elements or the thriller kind of horror elements that the main series does. It's just the fun, silly hijinks. Debuts for this month, and there's a couple. Well, some of them aren't debuts, but they're things that I've started, that have debuted in my life. The first one being a highly anticipated series. Super wonderful. Super happy that I got this. The release has been kind of overwhelmingly positively received, which is really cool to see. The publisher did a great job with this, and that is Die Dark by Ku Hayashida. This is Hayashida's newest ongoing series. It is as you can see, necromancy, space action, and dark humor collide in this wildly creative new series from the creator of Dora Hedora. So this is basically the story of a young teenage boy, who there's a rumor going around space that if you have his bones, or you steal his bones, or you eat something with his bones, if you have his bones, you can control the universe. You're unstoppable, unbeatable. Everything goes right for you. You can control the universe itself. So he's obviously being actively hunted by a whole bunch of weirdos, and he has this special dark magic necromancy-esque spacesuit that has a name and that I can't remember. And then he also has this talking skeleton thing that hangs out with him, and there's Satan's in here. It's a Hayashida work, so expect gore and blood and violence and just what it's definitely to the same level as Dora Hedora. Nothing has been toned down, and I love it. I'm super happy about that, but it's also not everyone's cup of tea. But in saying that, this still also has the really fun, down-to-earth human characters. All of the they're all weirdos. They all have very understandable motivations. I can definitely see the potential for the found family aspect, like Dora Hedora has. I'm so excited. I love it. And yeah, so great first volume for a series I know that I'm definitely going to probably enjoy. Ku Hayashida is a queen. Love her stuff. And I really hope that people give it a shot. Most people that I know are getting it because, one, they're either fans of Dora Hedora, or they recently discovered Dora Hedora thanks to the anime and are now getting into the manga and realizing how cool she is and wonderful she is. Or they've heard other people talk about it so positively that they're like, okay, I'll try it, and hopefully enjoying it, because hopefully they're getting good recommendations. I wouldn't recommend this to people who want down-to-earth slice of life stuff in rural countryside Japan. The Iyashikei maybe sweet slice of life stuff. If that's your bag, if that's the stuff you enjoy only in anime and manga, this one's not for you. For those who are a fan of Dora Hedora, who don't mind hyperviolence, who don't mind gore, who don't mind heads exploding and spines being ripped out and stuff like that, then check out Die Dark. And also check out Dora Hedora if you haven't. But check out Die Dark. It's very good. Tokyo Pop release. This is from their Love Love line. A heterosexual romance, not a gay one. But this is I was reincarnated as the villainess in an otome game, but the boys love me anyway. Volume 1 by Ataka, So Inaida, and Hachipisu Wan. This is basically what it says on the tin. A girl was isekai'd and reincarnated into the villainess of an otome game, her presumably favorite otome game, and now she's like, oh no, but somehow, because of her personality and how much she changes and how likable she is, all of the boys from the game like her, so it's not even a problem. It's Baccarina played straight. The protagonist in this isn't just a straight up Dumbo, lovable Dumbo, but this is a more serious take on the trope that we've been seeing a lot recently, i.e. a girl getting brought into her favorite otome world and winning all the hearts as the villainess, even when normally she'd be not winning all the hearts because the villainess is meant to be the bad one. You know, I wanted to give it a try. The artwork is very lovely. I enjoy Bakurina, but I also wanted to see if this kind of premise could be done well, like without that hugely comedic. I'm really stupid and don't know that I have an entire harem around me element to it. And, you know, it was strong. I liked it. It's not like, I wouldn't say you have to go out and buy this and it will absolutely change your life. But if you like the premise, if you like stuff like Bakurina, but you're wanting to see some actual romantic development, if you like otome games, if you like just castle royalty-esque whatever romance, then check this one out. Again, asterisk, it is a Tokyo Pop title, but you know, that's a personal choice as to everyone's own limits and what they're wanting to support. But I gave it a shot. It was pretty much what I expected, but that's not a complaint. It was good. I liked it. I don't know when and or if I will get the second volume anytime soon, but it was good. Like, it was good, and I do want to see more of it. I'd like to see how it develops from here on in, because I am a sucker. I'm a sucker for good romance. So, you know, might as well. And yeah, maybe if the hole in your heart from Bakurina is just a little too big, then give this one a shot. It's our protagonist isn't Katarina Clays, to be upfront with you, but she's not terrible and annoying or anything either. She's has her own merits. She's also a good character to follow. She's just not a dumbass. So yeah, I was reincarnated as the villainess in an otome game, but the boys love me anyway, volume 1. Preemptively, I will say that I know nothing about this and I haven't read it yet. I literally could not tell you the first thing about what the story is. I am hoping to get to it sooner rather than later, and obviously that will influence my decision as to whether I will continue it. But this is volume 1 of Asadora by Naoki Urasawa. I believe this is the story of a little girl in her life, and basically just the story of her life in post-war Japan, and following all of the amount of change that happens in that period. Maybe that's completely wrong. I don't know. Like, I don't know. There's no summary on the back. There's no summary in the French flaps. We just got Urasawa's life, and I'm like, cool guy, but also there's nothing. All I know, historical Japanese setting, and we have our main character, Asadora. She's the oldest child, or what? She's one of a huge family. She's got like 6 or 7 siblings. Yeah, no idea. Couldn't tell you. Who knows? But yeah, I do look forward to reading this one. It's on the to read pile, which has been getting smaller, I must say. I've been actively working at it, and I've had not a huge amount of time to get to it, but I am working at it, I promise. So yeah, I'll probably have more informed opinions on it once I've actually read it, and I will probably do a first impressions video on it, as well as many of the volumes that I talk about in this particular section of the video especially. So yeah, I'll have to leave you guys waiting for that one. This isn't really a new volume. It's been out for a little while, but I finally picked it up because I'd been interested in it, and then other people that I know who I have similar tastes with recommended it to me, especially because, as longtime viewers of the channel know, I'm a big yokai and supernatural and fantastical creature folklore fan. I don't hide that, and this is kind of more in my wheelhouse compared to some of the creator's other stuff. So that is Mermaid Saga Volume 1. It's also only going to be 3 volumes long, which is nice for Rumiko Takahashi series. This is a horror series about mermaids, and the Japanese mermaid in which if you eat their flesh, you will gain immortality, and maybe that's a curse, maybe that's not. I haven't read all of this, so I don't want to ruin it too much for myself, but this is not like the typical slapstick comedy that you expect from Takahashi, from like Ranma or Maison Ikoku or Inuyasha even, or definitely Urusei Yatsura. This is a little bit more moody, a little darker in tone, a little bit more mature, and obviously more in line with the horror themes than the like romantic comedies that she's more famous for. But I really look forward to finishing this one. It's one that, as I said, I've wanted to get to for a while. It was just kind of lower on the priority list for a little bit. But yeah, glad to finally have debuts right in time for Pride Month. And they're both so good. Okay, so the first one is from Square Enix, and that is I Think Our Son is Gay by Okura. Okura's other work that we have in English is That Blue Sky Feeling, which is a 3-volume, I think it's just an like LGBT story or genre, but you could angle it as a BL. But this is basically just about a mom, a housewife who like has her suspicions that her oldest son is gay, and her quietly supporting him without being obvious as to him having to come out to her or him having to say that to her. And it's just really, really sweet about how supportive she is in regards to his feelings for one of his classmates, in really confronting and challenging in a nice like mom way microaggressions, things like there's a chapter with when their dad, the father, has come back from working away for a long time, and he says something offhandedly about like watching a drama where men kiss is like weird and gross, and you know, who'd want to watch that, which was obviously like, one, is bigoted, but two, it's also not that uncommon of a opinion. And for his presumably gay son, who is still very closeted and thinks he's hell subtle about it, you know, that kind of, he doesn't act that way, but it breaks his heart, right? And the mother's like, well, what? You never even watched it. Maybe it's great, and maybe you will change your mind about that because there's nothing wrong with that, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you go, cool mom. And also his younger brother, again, he's not subtle about it. If you spend any time with this kid, it would be pretty obvious because he's like 15 or 16 and obviously doesn't know how to hide his feelings that well. He thinks he's totally getting away with like pulling off the straight man act. No. That's what we all think about anything, right? Like you think you're so slick. You think you're so good at hiding secrets at like 15 from your parents. that's most often not the case, right? But yeah, this is really sweet, really lovely, really just heartwarming. I also really liked that the final chapter in this book was about this mother going through her own realization and acceptance. Because her initial reaction to when she had her suspicions, was like panic and worry and whatever else, but then actually taking the time to think about it and calm down and reflect on her son and her relationship with her son and how important like someone's sexuality is to like your relationship with them. You know, this is not always the case, unfortunately, still, but hopefully any parent would still love their child regardless of gender, or sexuality. But a lot of people don't, like, obviously they just assume that their kid is straight and cisgender and whatever else, right? And so when they discover that they aren't, it might take a little time to adjust. And I think that it was nice that we saw that little bit of reflection and adjustment for this character who we now know is like super supportive and loves both of loves her family and wants the best for them, and you know is cheering for both of her kids from the sidelines, and one more than the other because he obviously has a big fat crush on one of his friends. And it's just it's so cute and so sweet. Yeah, really enjoy this one, and good job Square Enix. This is done very well in Japan as well. I think it's won like at least one award for things. It's quite popular, so I'm glad we're getting more stuff like this in English. I got this month, and another one that was perfectly timed for Pride Month next month is Volume 1 of Boys Run the Riot by Keito Gaku. So this is the story of a trans teenage boy who hates his school uniform because it obviously reminds him that he's like his body isn't how he feels. His assigned gender isn't how he feels, and doesn't identify as. So he does kind of anything that he can to not to avoid is the word I'm looking for. Avoid wearing the skirt and you know all of that. So and his friendship with another teenage boy, who he admits to, like, oh, you know, I don't feel like, you know, a girl. I'm a boy inside. This is who I am, and this is why I hate wearing such and such clothes. And they start a fashion line to get. Well, they become friends, and they start this fashion line, kind of inspired by his struggle and inspired by the clothes that he wants to wear. And I think it's so cool. I mean, obviously this. If you follow manga news, especially like Manga Mogura, this is one that quite early on got quite a bit of buzz in translation circles and scanlation circles and all these things, especially because we are currently in a very ongoing positive bubble of LGBT manga, right? Where we are seeing more and more being licensed, and more of the team and being very purposeful and conscientious of how things are being translated and adapted and all these sorts of things. So this one was really like wonderful to get, for one. Super exciting. More exciting as well is that the team is all transgender, which is super cool. Love that. And this is a really wonderful book. Like, I didn't expect it to be the large trim size from Kodansha. I don't know why. I just assumed it wouldn't be. There's this and the subsequent covers are all like specially made for the English edition, which is super cool because this is the cover in the Japanese. This was the first color page, I think, for the series. So they flipped it for the English, and then I watched the live stream where they actually discussed why they made the change and actually collaborating with Gaku Sensei in making new covers for the series. And I think it does appeal a bit more to English collectors with this sort of cover versus this one, where it's straight up you can tell a lot more about the series with this versus this. But also, like, for me, I was really interested in the fashion aspect of it. I've talked about it before, but my family has a background in fashion. It's some of my favorite stuff as well, from like Princess Jellyfish, even the middling amount of relevance it has and stuff like Paradise Kiss is just really interesting and would have captured my interest for this series anyway. Regardless of if it was a LGBT work or not. But it is, and it's I loved this first volume. I already have all four of the first 4 volumes pre-ordered. So I'm just waiting for them to arrive whenever they do. It is just really nice to see more and more diverse works being released, licensed, being released in Japan, licensed for English, released in English, giving full print releases in English as well. Obviously, again, timing-wise for this one is very purposeful, probably, with Pride Month coming up. I don't know if I mentioned, but Keito Gaku is also transgender themselves, so obviously this story is coming from a place very important to him. It's super cool, and it's a super great start to this manga, and I cannot wait for more. It's really wonderful, and definitely going to be included on my upcoming video for manga you should get for Pride Month. So yes, Boys Run the Riot, absolutely high recommendation from me. Did conclude a series this month. Another really exciting finale, exciting book finale. Technically the main series is over, but this is all of the extra stuff. Side stories, things like that. And that is The Rose of Versailles by Ryoko Ikeda, Volume 5 by Udon. The last of these beautiful hardcovers. We made it, boys! We made it! It may have taken 6 years to get here from initial licensing, but holy moly, yes. Finally, this classic in its entirety is available for me to have and read at my leisure. And all of you viewers as well, you can also buy it. In fact, I would encourage you to buy it. This is one of the most influential manga of all time. Hugely popular in Japan to this day. Fantastic anime adaptation. It's magnificent. Immensely wonderful. So this is the story of, well, it's the story of Marie Antoinette in the years leading up to the French Revolution, and then the French Revolution from the perspective of one of the royal guards, Oscar de Georges, who is the personal guard to Marie Antoinette. Oscar is the the daughter of like a major soldier in the French army, but was the only child to be interested in swordplay and things like that. So was raised as a boy by her father, and is the absolute talk of the town. You know, ladies love her, men want to be her, and is just, you know, it's dramatic, it's emphatically beautiful, it's just so stylish, so fun, so interesting. And I mean, yeah, what more can you say about a classic that is just so immensely important, and it's just really so wonderful. I'm almost gobsmacked, or lost for words that it's over. We made it to the end. Just super duper happy. Maybe hopefully now this will mean that we actually see some work being done on Sugar Sugar Rune from Udon, because they also licensed that at the same time, and we've yet to have any of that emerge. But I'm also not complaining. Absolutely go pick up this classic piece of manga history, one of the most influential series. As I said, there's probably stuff you've watched and or read and that were directly referencing this and you had no idea because you haven't read this. It's a seminal work. It's very important, and just really fun and wonderful, and again dramatic, captivating. It's so much good stuff. It's timeless, classic, and has fantastic 70s art. Although a lot of these side stories were drawn in the 80s, so little less. Well, I mean, it's still that style. You're not gonna take Ikeda's art style away from her. But oh my gosh, yes, brilliant. I love it. Look at phenomenal work, guys. It took forever, and I may have bitched about it along the way as for taking forever, but the quality of these books is so high. So much work being done and put into the translation. Beautiful hardcover. Highest quality paper as well, like super glossy archival quality paper. A must for any manga fan, honestly, full stop. But I'd say that if you're a fan of classic manga, if you're a fan of classic shoujo, if you're a fan of historical fiction, if you're a fan of 70s drama, if you're a fan of drama, if you're a fan of Marie Antoinette, if you're a fan of just anything of just the vibe, pick it up. It's well worth your time and money. Volume that I needed to complete a series. It's not the last volume, it's one of the middle ones, and I don't typically buy volumes out of order, but this series has been completed in print for a long time. It's one that I read digitally and really enjoyed. I really enjoy the author's current work / most recent work. It's sort of ongoing, is technically finished. It's a bit complicated, but this is Fire Punch Volume 6 by Tatsuki Fujimoto, a series that definitely earns its explicit content ratings logo. This is the story of a far future wherein various people have like weird X-Men type powers. There's also an ongoing, never-ending ice age. And our main character, along with his sister initially, who they have a very close relationship, let's put it that way, have this ability to heal. he much more so than she does. And so because of that, he offers various limbs that he then regrows to the people of the village that they're staying at. So they are in... It's cannibalism because there's no food and there's no like other animals, nothing to eat. All of these people would starve otherwise. But one of the larger, I guess, settlements discovers this, burns down the whole town, village, whatever it is, with another person with the ability to create fire. Because obviously cannibalism, not a super fun time. Don't want to encourage that. But so this particular fire is only able to go out once everything, all of its kindling has been completely destroyed. Unfortunately, our main character, he, because of his rapid regeneration and healing powers, he never completely disappears. So he ends up being this titular character, Fire Punch, where his body is perpetually on fire, on this fire that will never stop burning. And so he's in this continuous cycle of extreme pain and ongoing death, whilst never being able to actually die because, you know, that's not how it works. So he's going on this revenge trip to avenge his younger sister, who is his only surviving family, and then he meets a lot of various people along the way, and the story changes a lot across the way. Honestly, okay, so Fire Punch, I've said it before when I got the previous volumes, I'll say it again. This is a series that you go in with the knowledge that it has all of the trigger warnings, right? Like everything from the aforementioned cannibalism, implied incest, bestiality, pedophilia, just a lot of violence and gore and terrible things happening to people. But like with Chainsaw Man, which is this creator's most recent work, if you can get past the shock value schlocky aspects of the series, there's actually a really nuanced, interesting, valuable story behind this. And again, like with Chainsaw Man, Fujimoto really has a love for like Z-level, no-budget, schlocky action monster films. You can definitely tell from this. You can definitely tell in Chainsaw Man, and the love for film, love for movies, and that again comes across very prominently in both. And it's really interesting to see. And both of them are so cinematic as well. It would be so easy insofar as how this particular series is framed as a comic, and how the paneling is, and how the art interacts on the page, to imagine it as a film. It's harder more so with the content, right? But like the actual artistry of how this comic reads, how the art flows and interacts with each other, is like watching a film. Which is an absolute skill, beyond what I've seen in even very established creators. There's really a lot to like, and I can totally understand why people would be off-put by both this and Chainsaw Man early chapters. But as I said, if you can get past that, or if you can embrace the aspects that are very in your face, very shocking, in Fujimoto's work, it really does reward you with very interesting, nuanced discussion, with captivating characters, not necessarily good characters insofar as being good people. I would argue that there's very few good people, especially in Fire Punch, but they're wonderful to follow, and they're very understandable. Maybe not inherently relatable, but you absolutely understand the choices that they make in the positions that they're in. Yeah, I honestly think that hopefully now, because of the popularity of Chainsaw Man, more and more people will actively try Fire Punch and give it the chance. Don't you don't have to buy the volumes. The entirety is available on, if you have a Shonen Jump membership, it's available to read on their website, not the app, because of app explicit content warnings and things, restrictions. But you can read it all on the Shonen Jump website, which is what I did. And yeah, I mean, by the same token, it's not for everyone. I wouldn't, say everyone go read this, because it's not for everyone. Very understandably so. But I would say as well, for people, and I'm sure a lot of people have at this point, but Chainsaw Man is a little bit less in your face, has a little fewer of the just outright abhorrent, morally in your face, terrible things that, comparatively to this, it still has some. It still has some, but not all of them. And they're more mild than when compared to this. But yeah, I'm really happy to have finally finished this, and I will probably give it a reread at some point. I don't know when immediately, because I've got a large backlog of stuff that I still need to read, but yeah, Fire Punch is very, 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 very good. Completed a series with this. It's actually an omnibus volume, and I bought it because although the entirety of the original series was printed in singles, the sequel wasn't. It was only ever included in this final omnibus, and that is High School Debut by Kazune Kawahara. So this contains 13, 14, and 15. 13 is the end of the original series, whereas, as it says on the back, 14 and 15 were never published in singles, because it is actually a direct sequel set a year after the end of the main series. This is from the creator of My Love Story, earlier work than My Love Story, but is a series about a high school girl who really wants to get a boyfriend, doesn't know how she's going to do that, and so she's following all of these trends, and really nothing suits her, but one day when she's out on the town trying to get some guy to pick her up, she runs into one of her fellow, well, he goes to her school. She doesn't realize that at the time, but not in her class, he's a year older. But they literally run into each other, and she finds out from his friends that he's actually really good at kind of spotting how girls can level up their appeal to other people, if that makes sense. Playing to their strengths, I think, is a better word. So she asks him desperately if he would be her coach, so he'll help her find a boyfriend. And he agrees on the condition that she doesn't fall in love with him, and she said it's okay. But typically feelings do develop, and these two do get together. I don't think that's really a spoiler. It's quite early on in the series that they start dating, and then obviously their subsequent relationship after that. Very much an opposites attract sort of series, and I really, really enjoy this series. It was one that was recommended to me by my good friend Ray from Whimsical Pictures. I read the entirety of it last year through my library. They had all the omnibus editions, and I was lucky enough to get the singles for 1 to 13 from a private seller here. So I just needed this last omnibus for the actual end of the story. It's funny, it's fun, it's one of the stronger high school romance series in my opinions, because for me, I think the point of difference is that it's not so much about the will they or won't they get together, but more so their relationship after they have gotten together, and how two very different people can make the relationship work. I think overall it's just a really fun time. If you enjoy Kawahara's humor in My Love Story, then I think you'll enjoy this quite a bit. It's very, very good, and it's a little bit of an older one, so maybe one that a lot of people have passed on in the past, just because, you know, high school romance stuff and rom-coms aren't always my favorite genre, I know, and they're definitely a hard sell to certain subsets of manga readers, but this one is really good, and I hope that, like, just maybe through association with My Love Story, which is very well regarded across the board, that more people will try this one, because it's funny and it's fun, and both of the main characters of the couple are very different but very likable, and it's great to read about their relationship. Is the ongoing manga. I'm going to follow that beautiful deluxe edition with another beautiful deluxe edition, and that being volume 13 of the Full Metal editions of Furumu Arakawa's Full Metal Alchemist. This has Olivier Armstrong on the covers. This is, as I've said before, just the Kanzenban editions of Full Metal, but color pages, hugely beautiful archival quality paper, hardcovers, just wonderfully done. One of my favorite series, shonen series, especially personally. Like, Full Metal is very near and dear to my heart. Does it have problems? Yes, I'm sure. But also, I don't care. And overwhelmingly, it continues to be a modern classic. It's one that has definitely deserved all of the praise it gets, I would argue. And yeah, these are just beautiful hardcover editions. And for me, the best thing about them is they do have an updated translation, because the original translation from the singles that was reused for all of the subsequent releases, namely the 3-in-1 like cheap omnibus editions, is not very good and not very cohesive. There's a lot of term switching and spelling inconsistencies and things. So that was a big plus for me. I mean, I was going to get these anyway because they're the definitive edition, and as I said, like, this is a series very near and dear to my heart, so it would be bizarre if I wasn't, you know, going to buy it. And I owned the singles, but I was happy to sell those because, again, issues. But you don't have to go to the expense of buying fancy editions for this series if you don't want. There's numerous affordable options for Full Metal Alchemist, so don't feel like you should need to be buying this super expensive, super deluxe version of a story that you can get the entirety of for like a fraction of the cost. And has been around forever, so you can get probably even cheaper from secondhand sources. But yeah, Full Metal Alchemist is again, one that really doesn't need an introduction, I don't think, but I will anyway. The story of two brothers, Edward and Alphonse Ulrich, who are alchemists and are trying to regain their body parts after having a terrible run-in after attempting human transmutation, and in doing so they're searching for the Philosopher's Stone in order to fix themselves, as it were. And in order to do so, Edward joined the military, in which he was placed as a state alchemist. That's where he got his Full Metal Alchemist moniker from, and in their search for the Philosopher's Stone, they uncover a grand conspiracy that threatens the entire country, and villains abound, and it's great. I love it. Yeah, it's just one of my favorites. Yeah. If you haven't tried it, the manga's great. Both versions of the anime are great. I would personally recommend the original 2003 version, then followed by Brotherhood. I know some people like to dismiss the original, but they are not correct. They're both good. And yeah, obviously the manga is the original, and all three are different experiences. So I really appreciate all three for different reasons. Although Brotherhood is a closer adaptation of the manga. But yeah, Full Metal Alchemist, try it, buy it if it sounds good. If you're a fan, I mean, you're probably buying these, but if you're not, they are worth the money if for the updated translation, if nothing else. Ongoing manga, we have the large trim size standard books. I think I will start with Kodansha, because there's a lot of Kodansha stuff here. So we have volume 4 of The Witch and the Beast. I haven't had the chance to read this one yet. This is by Kosuke Satake. It's a kind of Grimm's fairy tale, dark fantasy, European setting about these two who are following rumors of witches, because witches exist and they're trying to break a curse. Well, most notably, she's trying to break a curse, and there's a lot of action, there's a lot of magic. It's quite good. I enjoyed it. It's dark themed, but really interesting take on sort of folklore and fairy tales, and again magic. This more so Grimm's type of story, and yeah, violence, blood, forewarning. It's really great. I like it a lot. Again, something that's really in my wheelhouse. If you like your girls particularly feral, then you will love our protagonist. And I think there's a really great dynamic between the two. It's fun, it's interesting, it's a good time, and there's not too much like it, especially genre-wise. That's the same. There's dark fantasy stuff that's being released, most notably The Girl from the Other Side, but that has notably less action than this. It has the more European feel to it, like Girl from the Other Side, comparatively to like Noragami or Holic or something like that. So yeah, I think it'll appeal to people who enjoy stuff like, well, so, you know, that I just mentioned, but also stuff like Pandora Hearts, maybe. There's a lot to really enjoy with it, or Case Study of Vanitas, which is like by the same author as well. A lot of good. It's one that is definitely worth a look if you aren't put off by anything that I explained or called it. So yeah, or Umineko as well. That's kind of an interesting, weird mystery fantasy series. Next ongoing manga I have from Kodansha is volume 8 of Drifting Dragons by Taku Kuabara. This is an ongoing fantasy slice of life, sort of mildly action filled story about a dragon hunting ship who goes around, and I guess they're sort of how to explain. They help free sky travel via Zeppelin by basically population control for dragons. I've said it before in regards to the series. I will say it again. It's definitely got a air of like stories about whaling and whale barges and things like that, which I can absolutely understand why people might not be like super thrilled about that aspect, but really it's more so a story about the various characters and the world around them, and this particular dragon hunting airship, the Quinzaza, are very unlike a lot of their peers in that they're very respectful of their position and what they are doing to these animals that are just like existing in a space that's inconvenient for humans. So in a similar way to like Golden Kamui, that really prioritizes, although you hunt an animal or for food or for your own protection or whatever else, you then give that animal due respect for its life. And that element is really played into with this series, notably through the preparation of food after the fact with said dragon that has been slain. I really like it. There's a kind of quiet, meditative nature to this, and again, it does give me a similar vibe to any of the cooking or cultural parts of Golden Kamui. But again, if the whaling aspect turns you off of it, totally understandable. It does have a recent Netflix anime. I haven't seen it, and I haven't really heard anything about it. I know probably a lot of people were turned off of it because it's a CG series, and those tend to be very hit or miss within the community. But it's one that I've been following the manga for quite a long time. I follow the Crunchyroll simulpubs of the chapters. I had the first 3 volumes digitally thanks to Humble Bundle several years ago, and I do really like this series. It has that very, as I said, kind of meditative, down-to-earth slice of life feel that I really enjoy in a lot of series, and so when it did make the jump to print, I decided to pick it up, and if it does sound like something that has piqued your interest, I do encourage you to try it. If not physically, then do try it digitally, and you can catch up to it with Crunchyroll, thankfully, as well. So I haven't actually read this book because I've read the various chapters already in the book, but it is really nice to have these on the shelf and be able to revisit them at my leisure whenever I want. So yeah, Drifting Dragons Volume 8 by Taku Kuabara. I got was Volume 3 of Blue Period by Tsubasa Yamaguchi. This is an ongoing series about a teenage boy who kind of late into his life, and by that I mean late into his high school career, discovers that he actually has a real affinity and interest in the arts, fine art, which he never really expected for himself. He is a bit of a delinquent, but was always aiming for kind of a solid job, stability, schooling that his family would be able to afford. And obviously there's a perception that, you know, art is a lot of work. It's a highly trained skill, and then ultimately it's not one that a lot of people see monetary success from in the long run. So a lot of people kind of dissuade their children from becoming artists. And so despite his own trepidations, despite his own worries for his parents' reactions, despite his worries for his friends' reactions, and also despite his worries for his skill coming into it at such a late age, which is not a late age, but when you're 15 and everyone who is, or 16, and everyone around you is aiming for the same thing that you are, has been doing this since they were 2 years old, you can feel like you're very, very behind in playing catch up to everyone else. He decides that he does want to go to a University of the Arts, which is notoriously difficult in Japan. The best ones demand both high grades, impeccable skill, and very high fees. So it's certainly an issue for him on multiple levels, but it's his personal story of growth and embracing his artistic ability and discovering how he can express himself through art. And I think that it really captures that aspect. And the wider discussion about the value of art and everybody's personal experiences and reactions to certain pieces and certain movements, within the art movement, that I think it just does it really, really, really well. I knew I would enjoy this series, and I've said this with the last couple volumes, but it really surprised me how quickly I attached myself to these characters. Not only our main character, but the wider cast and all of their various struggles, personally and with their work and with their expectations for themselves, which is another big thing that I think most people can understand, the struggle of wanting something to be perfect, and then, but if you continue to, work on something and continue to, or procrastinate on something because it won't be perfect, you'll never get anything done. And to embrace your mistakes, to embrace your growth, your learning periods, and taking all of those lessons and learning from them, obviously, and then going forward to make something even better. But you can't not create in order to try and improve yourself to reach that perfection that people aim for. But it's really, I love the series a lot. It's been nominated. It's certainly won a couple awards in Japan for good reason, I would say. I think the cast is really interesting. Both the teens and hopefuls for universities of the arts, as well as all of the teachers actually in this. I think they have really great mentors that, especially his high school teacher, who doesn't sugarcoat the realities of being an artist in the modern day, or any time really, the struggle and the lack of appreciation that people have for the arts, and a lot of people not finding financial success. And so it really is this pursuit of passion versus, necessarily a good career move. But yeah, I really, really like this, and I encourage people to try it out, especially if you haven't and you are an artist of any type. I think it's one that I think most people could relate to, especially if you're in this current community and mindset as well. Yeah, it's lovely, and I'm super happy that we're getting it in print from Kodansha. Volume 4 and Volume 5 of Perfect World by Rei Aruga. This is, I think it might be finished in Japan, technically. I feel like it is. It's got 11, 12 volumes in Japan, and is pretty much done. I don't know if they could spin it out any longer than it has been, but this is a romance series about two people who reunite they reunite at their 10th, their graduation 10th anniversary reunion. That's the word I'm looking for. Their 10-year reunion, and it's in high school. This girl, she had a big crush on the captain or a member of the basketball team, who was very dedicated to his sport and very passionate, and they sort of knew each other. They had kind of a tentative friendship, but nothing really came of her feelings. But after reuniting, she discovers that he, in the interim, in the past 10 years, was in a terrible biking accident and is now paralyzed from the waist down, so uses a wheelchair. And although that obviously has had a huge effect on his life, and he's still processing his life and his relationships with other people and his disability, and obviously how greatly it impacts his day-to-day comparatively to before the accident, they really hit it off. Their feelings on both sides kind of flare back up, and they decide to start dating, despite the various people in their lives who tell them, like, it is going to be hard. There's a lot of additional aspects of dating those with a physical disability in particular that wouldn't necessarily affect able-bodied couples. So I think it really handles the disability aspect very, very well. I've said that before in regards to this series. It's one that I've been following digitally ever since Kodansha was putting it out digital first, and I really love the series. Like, I really do. I think it's a great testament of, like, the love conquers all mentality, because despite people disagreeing with their relationship, or despite common sense and logic saying, like, yes, maybe so, like, this other person would be better with someone more suited or more experienced with their needs, despite that, they still continue to gravitate to each other, and they still can't forget or deny their feelings for each other. And and in so doing that, they then learn and grow and become more experienced, and are wanting to do that for the other person. They're affecting each other in positive ways and finding ways that they can make things work, and not just giving up because it's hard. I love this series a lot. It's very sweet. It's another one that's, I think, a great romance. It's another one that I think is a great depiction of disability. It doesn't shy away from the not so pretty aspects of paralysis and being in a wheelchair, which I think I really appreciate. It's not used as a gimmick, and it actually discusses various aspects of it, not only obviously in relation to our male protagonist, but in the wider accessibility of the world to those in wheelchairs, or those who can't get around as easily as others. And so especially notable because our main character, he's somewhat based off of a real life architect in Japan, who works on accessibility and allowing, like, borderless areas to allow people with wheelchairs or walkers or crutches or whatever the case may be an easier time getting around in the wider world. And so I think that aspect of the wider accessibility of society is also handled really well. And I think Aruga Sensei, she's spoken to this or consulted with this architect on multiple occasions, and there really is an extra part and extra effort being put into this series. If you're wanting a I'm not going to say, like, the romance aspect is superbly unique or any less tropey or whatever than your typical, heterosexual romance series. But I do think that if you're wanting a really positive and nuanced portrayal of physical disability, then this is a really good one. As I said, it doesn't just use it as a gimmick, it also offers various perspectives, not just one character, and it engages with it actively. It's not just part of the background or the scenery. So yeah, Perfect World, Volume 4 and Volume 5 by Re Aruga, and I can't wait for the next one. Romance and Disability. Technically this should have been in my debut part, but I've been reading this digitally for a little while, so it isn't completely new to me, and I think it segues pretty well from the last series. We have Volume 1 and Volume 2 of A Sign of Affection by Su Morishita. This is an ongoing romance between two college students. This girl who is legally deaf, and this guy who is not. He's just he's a very interesting character. He definitely after a run-in on the train where she's approached by somebody asking for directions, a foreigner asking for directions, she panics because not only can she not verbally say to them like, oh, I don't understand English, she's trying to sign and doesn't really have the ability to communicate in the same way that others would. But thankfully, this guy is also on the train, and he approaches this person asking for directions, and he is fluent in English as well as German, and knows bits and pieces of various other languages because he is very well traveled. He's quite international. He lived in Germany for a while, so he helps this person, and then turns to her and is like, oh, are you alright, or whatever, and she signs thank you, and he realizes that despite his love of languages in particular and other cultures and other countries, there's an entire language and community he doesn't know in Japan, in his homeland. So he's initially just curious and interested in wanting to learn more about Japanese Sign Language and the deaf community, but pretty quickly it's very obvious that both of them have feelings for each other, and thus they start dating. It's quite a quick turnover for the meet cute to the relationship, but they're just really sweet. It's a really lovely series to read. Obviously very focused on communication, which I think is, I mean, even if you're not talking about the deaf community, communication is key, right, for any sort of relationship, romantic or otherwise. And so it's this learning process of how to understand each other and talk to each other and avoid miscommunication, which for our main character has been something that she's now coming to struggle with, because up until this point she's had the worry, she hasn't had, her parents do they know sign? Her family, I don't remember if they know sign or not very well. But she went to a deaf high school or school, so she's always had deaf friends or people and teachers who understand her and know how to communicate with her. One of her childhood friends, he also knows sign, and so she's always been very close with him and his sister, and so she's had friends and people and never had a real issue communicating with other people, because when not talking in sign, she has her phone or her notebook that she can write in and have a conversation that way, and that's how she's been kind of struggling through university, or with her university friends, speaking to them, but now she's finding that because of his interest, because of his curiosity, because of his own want to learn about these things, the value in that. And I think it's just really sweet. It's really sweet and cute. I haven't read any of Sue Morishita's other works. Shortcake Cake is one that we've gotten from Viz. I feel like there's another one as well. I don't remember. But I really, really liked this one a whole lot, actually. Not a whole bit, a whole lot. I would say that at this point, it's compared to the other romance series about the deaf community and deafness, it's probably not as good with the representation of the deaf community compared to I Hear the Sunspot. Right now she is the only character who is deaf, so we haven't really gotten any outside perspectives. And from my understanding, she also uses a variation of Japanese Sign Language that isn't quote-unquote true sign language. It's not what the majority of the deaf community would use outside of communicating with like non-deaf people or in certain circumstances. So I'm not sure. There's obviously been a lot of love put into this, and the mangaka has spoken to people and experts in sign language and stuff like that. I'm just curious as to why she made the decision to not use JSL versus the sort of sign language that she did in this one. I don't know. Maybe there's decisions as to why that was. So yeah, I'm not sure how the representation isn't bad. It definitely could be better. It's better than something like A Silent Voice, in my opinion. But yeah, it's just really cute. I like it a lot, and it's definitely made me want to read more of Sue Morishita's works, because this really captured my attention and my curiosity early on, and it's just really lovely and heartwarming. We have volumes 2, 3, and 4 of Heaven's Design Team, a very funny educational manga about various animals and their physiologies and things. It's recently had an anime from which I haven't finished yet, but I've heard good things about the entirety of it. I was very happy that they did decide to adapt it, and I'm glad that it got more people interested in the series. This is basically a pretty episodic story about various angels, the design team of angels in heaven, and who have to design all of the weird and wonderful animals of Earth because God got too lazy about it. And they come up with some really wonderful, crazy, weird designs. But then their engineering department is like, hey, guys, come on. Make it a little bit feasible, possible. Physics and physiology and stuff can only go so far. We can't just make a unicorn for you. That would just not work very well. Sorry, Pegasus, totally out. How would wings that size lift a body that size with muscles that heavy? No. It's really funny. It's quite fun. I do recommend the anime as well, and they're pretty good. As I said, pretty short, self-contained chapters. Really fun one for like actually educating about the different animals. It's somewhat suitable for children. There's discussion of like penises and various like reproduction things that because animals can be weird. But if you're not worried about your kids knowing about how certain animals reproduce, then I think you're fine. It's very, 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 very good. And all around, it's just a really fun time. Another one that I'm glad made the jump to print. It's one that I was following digitally first. And so yeah, I can't wait to continue on with this series. Now we have a penultimate volume of a series I love dearly. And that is, of course, Blue Flag by Kaito. This is an 8-volume coming-of-age romantic drama about 3 friends in high school and their various romantic interactions with each other and feelings and all sorts of things. For all of its faults, I really love this series a whole bunch. All of the characters are so compelling and likable and easy to attach yourself to. I laughed, I cried, I adore this series, and I already know how this ends. I was following this on the Manga Plus app. It was one of their few titles that were on there for a while in its entirety, and was not licensed by anyone until Viz licensed it, obviously, which is why we have this print release. It's one that's I mean, it has people, and it has its criticisms, don't get me wrong. I kind of don't care for my own enjoyment, for my own personal attachment to it. I don't care. It's not that I don't care, it's something that hasn't impacted my enjoyment of everything else, every other part of the series. I didn't have an issue with the ending. I know some people do. I really didn't. I know some people have issues with stuff, especially in this particular volume, which I think are valid, but I also think is something that comes with particular upbringing, particular culture that you're raised in, particular personal wants and expectations for this series. And I think that's, all something that's relative and personal and something that you have to sort for yourself, whether it's good or bad in regards to how it's handled in this. I really like this series. I'm really happy that we've gotten it in print. I'm happy that more people are reading it. I just love Blue Flag, and it's very unlike a lot of other series in how it handles all of its elements, but certainly some very important aspects of it. There's a lot to really love with this series, and I really look forward to Kaito's next work. I hope we see it in English. I'm really wondering what they will do next, because I liked their first work as well, which was Cross Manage, which is digital only from the Shonen Jump app. I don't know what their next series will be, but I will guarantee I will be reading it, because it's with this and with Cross Manage, there's a proven pattern for their works and my enjoyment of them, and their ideas and their execution of their ideas. Yeah, I will be happy but sad when it's over. Happy because then I can tell everyone to go read it and finish it. Sad that once again it will be completed. But also then again happy that I can reread the entirety at my leisure. Blue Flag, Volume 7 by Kaito. Definitely check it out. I have Volume 8 of Yuji Kaku's Hell's Paradise, Jigoku Raku. This is another completed series, another one that I read in its entirety from Manga Plus when it was available there. It's one that you now can read in its entirety on the Jump website. Again, one that's not available on the app because of violence and gore. But yeah, oh my goodness. I love this series so much. This is the story of a Well, a group really of death sentence prisoners who are sent to this mysterious island wherein there's rumors that the elixir for immortal youth or ongoing forever youth is there, and they've been told that whoever can get this particular elixir for either the shogun or the emperor, I can't quite remember, will be pardoned. So they will be free. And so it's this battle royale between these death row inmates, but this island is also full of terrifying monsters, to which they had very little warning about. They knew that something was going on this island, but they'd seen evidence that people who came back weren't doing too well, to put it mildly. Typically, anyone they sent in there had died, so these criminals are an expendable force to be used by the government to try and get, this particular item. They're also accompanied by the various swordsmen of a particular sword school who are famous executioners. So our main character is Gabimaru the Hollow, who is a unkillable ninja, and his partner is Sagiri, who I believe is the next head of this particular of the Yamada sword school, and she is very adept at what she does, and every criminal has an executioner that they're paired with just to prevent them from running off and causing havoc and trying to escape. They've been told to behead anyone who tries to escape immediately. But obviously things go very bad very quickly. People are killed, monsters eat people, all sorts of things. So there's a small group of survivors, all who are very interesting, really compelling, wonderful, engaging cast of characters, lovable cast of characters, both criminals and executioners, who are now working together to get this thing, right? To get this elixir of immortality and fight the actual various evil forces on this island. And so they're working together to do so, and then also trying to figure out how they're going to survive after the fact. And man, I love this series a whole bunch. Great action, as I mentioned, great characters. It's one that is really, you read for the characters, you stay for everything else. Very, very, very cool monster design, which is always a plus in my book, personally. And having finished the series, I liked the ending as well. So, it was good. Overall, a very satisfying series, one that's really fun to read. Lots of really cool character stuff, and lots of cool fights and whatever else. But yeah, Hell's Paradise is really awesome, honestly, and I hope more people give it a shot. Continuing manga, we then have all of the normal trim size stuff. So I think I will start with another vertical release, another series that is definitely going to be switching to Kodansha, because there's, I think, 2 more volumes of this series. It's completed in Japan, and I'm interested in seeing how it ends, because I don't know. But this is My Boy Volume 7 by Hitomi Takano, a series that people are very hesitant about for good reason. I don't think too many people want another bunny drop sort of ending. This is the story. It initially starts as the story of a 12-year-old boy and a 30-year-old woman who find support in each other. Friendship, support. She's helps him out of a somewhat mildly abusive situation. He's very much ignored by his father after the untimely death of his mother. So she kind of helps him, teaches him soccer, or helps him get better at soccer and all sorts of things. But after a period of time, his dad finds out that his son has been hanging out with this 30-year-old woman, which, so as a good father, was like, this is weird and also not appropriate. So they, stop being friends. I think his dad then moves, or she's transferred to her hometown, and so they are separated for several years, and then they meet up again by pure coincidence. And when he's now a middle school student, he's 15, 16 years old, and she's obviously in her early 30s, and they obviously, neither of them have forgotten the impact that the other had on each other. I will admit I am not up to date entirely on this series in the print releases, so I don't know how things have been going. And again, one that is understandable why people wouldn't want to buy this, because we've been burned before. Like, I get it. There's a very real risk of being burned. But I will say that although there is, it somewhat reminds me a little bit of After the Rain, wherein the younger person there's a relationship there, and there's maybe even romantic feelings, especially from the younger side, but dependent on how that is executed, dependent on how the story unfolds, or even something like, what's it called? Sweetness and Lightning. I would be perfectly happy, or mildly less concerned, if there was a time skip at the end and then both of them are adults and make the decision to become a couple, versus a minor and an adult getting together, which is what happens in Bunny Drop, or Usagi Drop. And then After the Rain doesn't develop into a relationship whatsoever, which I think is honestly what I would prefer for this. I feel like there's a lot of potential for, I think, like, that story I think works so well because it puts value on how people impact and support each other without it inherently being a romantic thing, but at the same time understanding the confusion that especially young people have with those sorts of relationships and projecting romance onto them, or projecting love onto them, onto the other person. So I would want that more than anything. But Sweetness and Lightning, it has your teacher, student, or you have your teacher and his young daughter, and then the high school student that is like their friend, and they all cook together and make meals. And then at some point she leaves, she goes to, she graduates, she goes to train for several years as a chef, and then they reunite and presumably from there start a relationship, the teacher, father, and this, his ex-student, which I wasn't, like, I'm not super keen on that ending, but I know people weren't, like, people liked that ending. They liked that finally of them becoming family sort of thing. And I think that if that's what happens, that would be less of an assault to, or an insult to some people's sensibilities. I don't know. It's still up in the air. Maybe people who read scans of this know, and I'm just an idiot and, just giving the series too much credit. Who knows? But by the same token, the art in this is really lovely. There's some really breathtakingly gorgeous and emotional moments in the series that I think have real value. But the author's notes are also really creepy and weird. So again, whereas is still on the fence, and I don't think we'll ever get off of the fence until it's ended. At least in English for me. So I guess we're just gonna have to find out. We've got some shoujo beat stuff. So first off, we have Yonah of the Dawn, volume 29 by Mizuho Kusanagi. This is, of course, the ongoing, I guess, historical fantasy series, romance, action series. There's a lot of different genres in this one. About a princess who, after the untimely murder of her father, is ousted from the castle. She discovers that she is the reincarnation of the Crimson Dragon King of legend, and so she and her loyal guard, Hawk, go on a journey to find the 4 dragon warriors, to which have sworn their loyalty to the Crimson Dragon King, to which they find them, and now they are traveling around the country learning about this land that she for a long time was somewhat of a ruler of, but didn't really have any idea about, and the people that live therein, whilst also, I guess, I don't know if coming for revenge, but trying to figure out her position against her cousin, who was the one who murdered her father, who is now the current emperor or king, and her feelings towards him, and the very complicated personal history they've had together, and how she can't just immediately, kill him. There's still a lot that she cares for about him, and there's a lot of stuff that's been unsaid, and this opportunity to work together, if not together towards the same goals, if not for the same reasons. It's just Yonah is so good. It's so good. I love it. It's one of the best series, full stop, coming out right now. This one is really, I think, one that anyone can enjoy. There's a lot to love. It's funny. It's fun. The characters are great. The romance is really aptly built up, but doesn't dominate the story. The action, there's a lot of political scheming. There's a lot of just everything. It's so good. It's so good, and if you haven't been reading Yonah of the Dawn, you are doing yourself a great disservice. It is wonderful. Definitely in my most anticipated ongoing series. I always pre-order. I have like the subsequent 5 volumes or whatever it is always on pre-order, so I get them as hopefully as soon as possible, because once you finish reading it, you need the next one immediately. And it's so good. And at 29 volumes and ongoing, I think there's 36 volumes currently in Japan and ongoing, it just continues to be marvelous. Just one of those series that you wish would never end, and hasn't fallen in quality whatsoever over the entirety of the course of the series. I've said this before, but I have a tendency to not really like series that are overly long. I find that some series, especially when they get into the dozens upon dozens of volumes that a lot of long-running shonen and shoujo fall into, that there's an element of excess, element of kind of meandering or repetition, or kind of confusion or unsurety as to what a creator wants to keep going with, and some certain parts, certain arcs or whatever can be not as good as the previous, and so a lot of longer series can sometimes end in a whimper rather than a bang, because they've been drawn out due to popularity, and demand. So when a series does get super long, and by that I mean kind of like over 20 volumes, if I'm still following it, if I'm still actively super excited for it and wanting to get the next volume, and super passionate about it, then it's doing something right. That's a positive. And there's very few series like that in my collection. There's not too many series that I have that are over 20-25 volumes. Natsume's just hit that cusp, and of course I'll still be continuing with it. Hunter x Hunter is another good example. Yonah, of course, here. Haikyuu and Kaze Hikaru and Skip Beat. Even Black Butler, which is not nearly to the same level of quality, I would argue, as the others that I mentioned. But they just do something right. They do something and capture something and continue to be wonderful. So I will continue to follow them. And also follow them and love them enough that I want the physical copies for as well, comparatively to... Because there's nothing wrong, and I don't dislike stuff like My Hero Academia and Jujutsu Kaisen and stuff like that. But My Hero especially, and Demon Slayer, things along those lines, they're just a bit long. I don't have the space for them. And obviously Demon Slayer isn't even that long. And when we're talking about Jump series, My Hero Academia isn't that long. But I don't, for right now especially, I don't have the room or the space for them. And also it's probably a good bet to just wait, and they'll release a box set for that. But yeah, Yonah is one that I continue to pick up and just adore because it's super duper good. And so check it out if you haven't. I guess royalty, romance, low fantasy kind of series with Snow White with the Red Hair by Sorata Akiduki. This is volume 13. Man, I mean, I say it every time I get one of these volumes as well, but I love this series. It's so good. It's so romantic. I love the relationship between our main couple. I love all of the side characters. The larger plots and various adventures are super interesting. It just has a lot going on. I really value how much the characters support each other, how much they understand each other's motivations and decisions, and put trust into each other. I just love it. I love it so much. The anime is also great. And it just continues to be marvelous. I'm so happy that Shoujo Beat decided to take the chance on this one. I think a lot of people expected it to just fall to the wayside because it got licensed many years after the anime adaptation, which typically is quite unusual. But this is the story of Shiroyuki, a teenage girl, 19-year-old girl who runs away from her home kingdom after the unwanted the unwanted summons from the prince of her kingdom because of her bright red striking hair. He asked her to come to the kingdom and, I guess, join a harem-esque kind of thing. I don't really remember what his full intentions were. I don't think he wanted to marry her. I think he just wanted her to be at the castle for him to have access to. And she's like, no, I'm not doing that. She runs away, runs into the forest to continue her pursuit of becoming a herbalist. And while she's in the forest, she meets this young guy, and two guards who are in the forest. They're in some sort of mild danger. I think they got stung or they ate something poisonous or something. I don't quite remember. But she helps him, and she discovers that he is actually the second prince of the neighboring kingdom, and he offers her a place to stay in his kingdom, offers her sanctuary, and also the opportunity to train as a herbalist in the courts, in the royal courts. So she takes him up on that offer, and they hit it off pretty quickly, and it's just it's so good. It's so good. We have Zen on the cover with our silver hair there. He's our prince of the piece, and then Obi is Shiryuki's personal, I guess, bodyguard. Also the third in their throuple, because if you like OT3s where there's three people in this couple, then Snow White with the red hair definitely sees you, definitely provides good food. Who knows if it's canonical endgame, but it's also not canonical endgame. Not canonical endgame. So there's always possibility. This is great. I really like all of the side characters, including Raj, who is the original prince who wanted to have her in his kingdom to just look at her hair. He's grown so much. Their friendship is really interesting. There's just a lot of cool stuff going on, and it warms my heart and it makes me believe in love. Right? That's really cheesy and dumb, but it's super duper good. And there's, I think, 22, 23 volumes in Japanese currently. Another one that I will continue to buy and continue to support until it stops being interesting. But so far, so good. It's really, really great. Title, another, I guess, fantasy, romance action series. I don't know. Is The King's Beast Volume 2 by Rei Toma. This is a ongoing, I think there's 7 volumes in Japan. Series from the creator of Dawn of the Arcana and The Water Dragon's Bride, or whatever it is. This is set in the same world as Dawn of the Arcana, and is a Mulan-esque story wherein the twin sister of who is an Ajin. So this girl in her childhood had a twin brother. And Ajin are these people, or this race with animal features. They have super strength and stuff like that as well. They're typically kind of the servant or serfdom class in this society. Basically slaves, typically used as soldiers and things like that, laborers. And so those with particularly powerful abilities and magics of which are known as the Arcanas in the original series, they get chosen to become the personal bodyguards of the royal family. Her brother was this, and he was taken to the castle at a very young age, but he was killed shortly thereafter, and so his twin sister decides to pretend, because also the girl Ajin are not allowed to be soldiers or anything, so she pretends in Mulan fashion to be a boy, and then she proves herself the strongest and becomes the personal guard of the same prince that her brother was, who died in his service, because she wanted revenge on this prince, right? She blamed him for her brother's death, but then when she finally gets to know him, she realizes that he is not responsible. So now the two of them are trying to figure out who is, and it's very good. It's really interesting. I enjoy the original series, but I will say that already this series is better. It's more fleshed out and a bit more dynamic, which is understandable because this is a Dawn of the Arcana feels like an earlier work, which it is. Like, it's pretty early on in Reitoma's career, I believe. So she's just developed and matured and continued to grow over the course of her career. And so The King's Beast has just been really good. It's also a standalone. You don't have to read Dawn of the Arcana to understand this one. They're set in different countries and completely different characters. But yeah, The King's Beast gets 2 thumbs up. I really enjoyed this, and I look forward to the next volume. We have the most recent volume of Spy Family by Tatsuya Endo. This is volume 4. Very funny comedy from Shonen Jump. That is Jump Plus, I believe, about a spy called Twilight who is in the midst of this Cold War-esque or Berlin Wall-esque skirmish between 2 countries. He's trying to get information on a government official or some head of government in the opposing country, but the only way he can get close to said official is through his son, Damien. So he has to pretend to have a family in order to get a child who will befriend this little boy. So that's at some point they may go on a sleepover or a birthday party or something, which would give Twilight the excuse to get closer to this official and steal secrets. But things are not as easy as he would like. Not only does he have to find a child somewhere, but the school that this little boy goes to is a super elite school, so he has to get married or have a whole family dynamic set up. So he initially adopts this little girl from a very shady orphanage, backwoods orphanage where there's no regulation, and unbeknownst to him, but he's adopted a little girl with psychic abilities or mind reading abilities, and then he hastily gets married to this young woman who works at government offices, but in her downtime is actually a skilled assassin. So they are a family of very odd individuals, and none of them, aside from the little girl Anya, knows the secrets about the other one. So it's hilarious because obviously the parents don't know that one's a spy, one's an assassin. They don't know that their daughter can read their minds and thus knows everything about what's going on. And plus all of the hijinks that Anya gets into at the school. But it's also really heartwarming and sweet and just a really lovely found family story, because there's as fake as this family is and as quickly pushed together through circumstance that these 3 individuals were, they really are growing on each other. They really value each other, and it's something that's just really lovely to see. So you will laugh and then your heart will get really warm because it's just really sweet at the same time. And Anya is the best character. Yes, Spy Family is wonderful. For as much as it sounds gimmicky, it actually really isn't, and it manages to balance all of its just crazy characters and odd elements really, really well. It's another one that I don't really think needs any introduction. I think most people know about Spy Family, but if you haven't given it a look, I would highly encourage you to do so because it is super wonderful. Volume in of itself, technically it's the end, although there's been rumors that it will be continuing. It's also the first volume of this particular series that I've gotten or received. I've bought the other volumes, but they are with my US proxy because I had to buy them from the US, because this is quite a hard series to track particular volumes down for now. although with the news that it may be continuing, maybe Kodansha will do a reprint. But this is Holic Ray, the sequel to Holic by Clamp. And this is the story of Kimihiro Watanuki as a boy who can see spirits, who is now owner of an odd shop that grants wishes, various other supernatural, spiritual entities, things going on. The month before, I picked up the main series in its entirety from a local seller, and with the knowledge that the sequel had only a couple volumes before it went on hiatus, but again, as I said, it's one that is rumored to be coming back somewhat soon. Also, as viewers of my now on hiatus / finished ended live stream series know, I'm not really a fan of Clamp insofar as their works go. There's very few that I really actually enjoyed, but Holic is one that I adore. In saying that, getting the manga last month or the month before is the first time I've ever read the manga. I was introduced to Holic, and I was introduced to Clamp really through Holic, the anime. But its reputation kind of precedes it. It's one that's very, very well regarded. Of my friend group, I think the consensus is that it's probably the best from Clamp. I don't have nostalgia for a lot of the other very popular titles from this group, including Cardcaptor Sakura or Ray Earth or even Chobits, stuff like that. I'm just not fond of them, and having read them now as an adult, they just don't really appeal to me whatsoever, and I see more of the problems than get immersed in the story. But regardless, that nothing to do with much. Holic is kind of the opposite of that. I really love it, and for the few problems and the few peculiarities that kind of are always in Clamp works, I'm already so invested. I already really love this world and this idea and these characters so much that some of the stuff that may annoy me in other Clamp titles don't annoy me nearly as much with Holic. And although I haven't read this sequel series yet, I've heard nothing but good things, aside from it being on hiatus, and really look forward to continuing this series once I've gotten the other first volumes of Ray. So yeah, really, really looking forward to this one at some point when I get it, whenever I decide to ship my proxy box out to me. Have a Square Enix book from Square Enix Books, and this is the Apothecary Diaries Volume 2 by Natsu, Hyuga, Neko Kurage, Itsuki Nanao, and Tokoshino. So this is the manga adaptation of the novel of the same name. I am also reading the novels via J-Novel Club. I hope that they get a print edition, because as lovely, and this manga is really lovely, I do think it's very, very, very good. I do somewhat tend to prefer source material for light novels versus manga adaptations. That isn't a knock on the manga though. It's very lovely. The art style is gorgeous, and again, one that the characters are really interesting. This is about a teenage girl called Mao Mao in a historical Chinese setting who, kind of a theme for today, wanted to be a herbologist, really personally interested in poisons and medicines and things, so much so that she's actually built up her natural immunity to poisons. But one day, when she was out scavenging for ingredients and things, she was sold by her family to the Pleasure District, but she was still a bit too young and unappealing to be working there, so she was just, a maid or whatever. And then when she was out scavenging for ingredients and things that she could use for her medicines, she was kidnapped and basically put into slavery and presented to the castle as a member of the harem, the emperor's harem. And she's totally uninterested, not keen on this turn of events, but she starts working as a maid there, like she was in the pleasure district as well. But she quickly kind of gains attention because someone who is there who suspicions, they haven't quite revealed who he is. He's someone noble, but there may be other things going on there. He recognizes that she actually knows how to read, which is a rarity. And she overhears issues between various concubines. They keep getting sick, and then some of their children are getting sick and dying, and they're accusing each other of sabotage and murder and all these sorts of things. She's kind of been found out on being this knowledgeable about medicines, can read more so than like a normal, or more so than any kind of lower class person. She's definitely not a typical maid, so she's brought in by this other noble guy who has kind of had his attention caught by her, and brought in to get involved. And she discovers the source of this illness and poisoning, and very quickly, because of her knowledge, she's brought in by one of the most like notable concubines as the designated poison taster, or like the person who eats food before the important people do to check if there's poison, right? Food taster. This is just continuing from that. There's a large event going on. There's also further illnesses and things that Mao is getting into, and she's slowly learning more about the class, kind of the political clashing going on in the castle, and various symbols of class and stuff, and her own. She hasn't quite realized it, but her own notoriety amongst those with a lot of power, just from being her own self. But it's really, really great. I like the series a lot. I look forward to when the novels are put out in print, which they will, because I presume this is doing quite well for J-novel. It's a very popular series in Japan. Very popular series in Japan. The web novel was very popular. The light novel, printing of said web novels is very popular, and this manga is very popular. So I don't doubt that we will probably see an anime at some point, and that we will get more of this franchise both through this manga and through the novels. Yeah, it's really, 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 really good. The penultimate volume of Penguin Drum. This is by Izu Shibata and Ikuni Chowder and Lily Hoshino doing character designs. This is obviously the manga, not adaptation, because Ikura franchise manga are never one-to-one adaptations of the anime that they're from. But this is just the manga for Penguin Drum. I've said it before, I really like this whole how different people, how different creators adapt the same world and these same characters, and of course it follows a similar plot to Mawaru Penguin Drum, but it's not a one-for-one, and I don't think it needs to be. Personally, Penguin Drum is my favorite of this director's works, but that's saying a lot, because I do love all of them, right? Like, that's Yuri Bearstorm or Yuri Kuma Arashi, Sarazanmai, and of course Revolutionary Girl Utena are all fantastic in their own right. But personally, Penguin Drum it just ekes out a little bit ahead of the others. Yeah, I mean, what to say about Penguin Drum? It's hard to explain, but basically, 3 siblings, 2 boys and a girl, teenage siblings. They are living alone. They don't have any parents. They've been living alone for quite a while. The sister is quite sick, and one day when they're out at the zoo, she collapses, and subsequently at the hospital she's pronounced dead. But when the penguin hat that one of her brothers bought for her at the aquarium is placed atop her head, she's possessed by the spirit, the princess of the crystal, and told both brothers are told to change fate and save the world and all these other things. And if they do so, or until they do so, their sister's life is in this mysterious entity's hands. So of course they agree because, they're wanting to save their sister's life. And then all of a sudden these 3 penguins, these 3 strange penguins show up. And yeah, I mean, they meet a lot of different characters. There's a lot of scheming and a lot of stuff going on. And over the course of the series, you find out more about their situation, their family structure, why they're 3 teens living alone with no parents, how this kind of happened, and dang, it is a good series. This is a 5-volume series for the manga in total. There's also 3 light novels, and of course the anime adaptation too. My plan is to get all of the manga, or all of the various adaptations of Ikuya series. So I have the Utena manga, and after Revolution manga, I have the Sarazanmai, Reo, and Mabu single volume. I have, of course, Penguin Drum. I have the Yorikuma Arashi manga. I'm planning on getting the Sarazanmai novels and anthology. I have the first volume of Penguin Drum light novels. There's a lot going on, and I really enjoy seeing different expressions from these works. So yeah, it's more of the same. I can't wait to finish it, although it did take quite a while. I feel like this 4th volume to be released. Maybe that's just my odd perception of time. Who knows? But yeah, it's almost over, and then I can reread it again to my leisure. I have the 2nd omnibus, volumes 3 and 4 of Blue Giant by Shinichi Ishizuka. This is a award-winning manga, very, very well-known manga in Japan. Look at all those awards. About a middle school boy who discovers his love for jazz and then wants to become a jazz musician. He wants to play the saxophone, and basically his story in doing so, and how his struggles as being a self-taught musician, but his personal passion for it, and his growth as a musician, as a person, having never really had any formal training, not really having the I don't know how to phrase it, but he doesn't come to music from a place that's super well informed, so he's just kind of flying by the seat of his pants. But regardless, he's still very passionate, still wanting to follow his dream, and then the various people who have been impacted by his music and by him and by his passion over the course of, getting to his professional career, which is alluded to because most of the story is framed as flashback. We have kind of book-ended chapters where people reflect on this guy as a teenager, like when he was first breaking into the scene and learning about saxophone, which is what the main story of this is, but from a place where now he's, an adult and been in this business and very well known. So I don't think that's a spoiler, because it's framed that way from the very first chapter, but it's very, very, very good. Blue Giant is wonderful. I definitely recommend it, although again, with like music manga, it's a hit or miss whether or not you'll enjoy it, because obviously comics do not have an audio element to them, right? So music manga can sometimes not be very effective if you're not familiar with the type of music that is being played. Maybe it's probably better for jazz fans or saxophone fans, or people who listen to a lot of music or are very familiar with music and jazz in particular and saxophone in particular, because otherwise there's a lot of musical references that you may not be familiar with, and of course, like, you can still enjoy it if you're not understanding all the references. We have Google. You can absolutely just look up YouTube copies of these songs, but that may cut out of immersion a little bit. So it'd be interesting if this ever got a anime adaptation and how that would impact people's perception of the series. Because when I compare to stuff like Beck or even Your Line April, or like Kono Oto Tomare, where those are manga about music and series about music, but actually being able to hear that music makes a world of difference versus reading it. But yeah, even so, you can definitely feel the impact of performance and the levity of the reactions from performance as well in this manga. It's done very, very well. So maybe I'm just being overly cautious, but I do think that may be a barrier for some people. But regardless, it's very good. This will be completed in 5 omnibus volumes, so this is a 10-volume series in Japan, with 2 sequels, Blue Giant Supreme and then Blue Giant something else that's currently running. I presume that if this does well, then Seven Seas will continue licensing the sequels, and I hope, fingers crossed. And yeah, it's pretty good. You should give it a try if it sounds like something you'd enjoy. A Yuri title. This is volume 7 of A Tropical Fish Yearns for Snow by Makoto Hagino. This is a 9-volume series, I think in Japan. It just recently ended, about 2 girls who are part of their high school's aquarium club who may have feelings for each other. It's an incredibly slow burn. I'm not 100% sure that it ends with any kind of established relationship or admittance of feelings, so that may be a turnoff for some people. I don't know, but it's really lovely and sweet and cute. Has a lot of really sweet aquatic animals as well. It's based off of a real life school that hasn't famous for its aquarium club. And yeah, I mean, what's not to like? A Tropical Fish Yearns for Snow is really sweet, lovely. One that's definitely worth looking at, especially if you're wanting a somewhat longer Yuri series, where you actually see a lot of development over the course of the series for the characters. Having recently completed Bloom Into You, at 8 volumes. This one is a nice continuation from that point. We have so much Yuri coming out, which is a great thing. That's not a complaint. But very often Yuri can be quite short, whether that's single volumes or like 1 or 2 or 3 volumes. There's not really a lot that span for a long period of time, aside from some notable exceptions. And this is kind of one of them. And yeah, it's nice that we're seeing some more long form Yuri in English. So we'll get into the BL titles, Boys Love series that I got this month. Another Viz imprint with Sublime, with volume 14 of The World's Greatest First Love, The Case of Ritsu Onodera by Shungiku Nakamura. If you watched my anime haul video, I also got the anime adaptation DVD sets from Funimation this month of this series. I'm not... Okay, so I like this series a lot. It's one of those series that's kind of like just pure popcorn entertainment. I know it's not good. I'm not gonna call it like high art, but it's not horribly offensive or makes me super uncomfortable comparatively to Junjo Romantica. I really don't like a lot of Nakamura's work. Junjo Romantica has far too much that I dislike about it that it totally outweighs what I do like about it, which is one couple out of the 3. This one, I still have issues with it. It's still tropey. It's still got elements of like, oh, that was the time, and stuff that I don't put up with in other BL. But this is a somewhat formative series to my BL experience. I do think it's overwhelmingly better than Junjo Romantica. I like at least Ritsu as a character more, or as a protagonist more. I like majority of the characters in this. I like 2 out of the 3 couples. And we only ever see 2 of the 3 couples in the manga, which is good. The ones that I care about. Maybe if the 3rd couple wasn't a novel only edition and I actually saw more of them in the manga, maybe I'd like them more. Who knows? But yeah, it's not, this is kind of one of my guilty pleasure series. It's not inherently the worst thing ever, but you have to be able to put up with some of the more negative BL tropes of like, oh, he's protesting so much, but we know that he's in love, so it's fine, right? In real life, no. When you hear no, that's a no. Just don't push it. But this is manga, and, you know, we as the readers know that it's fine because in actuality, it's real love, actually. You know, tropey stuff, right? So if you... if you're interested in this series, it's the story of this guy here, Ritsu Onodera, who, when he was in middle school, had a big crush on one of his upperclassmen, and Saga Senpai. And one day, out of the blue, kind of in a fluster, professes his love to this other boy, to which, to his surprise, the other boy says, sure, let's date. They spend several weeks together and as boyfriends, but I think the first time they try to get intimate, something happens. There's a misunderstanding. They break up, and they're both heartbroken, and super hurt. And Ritsu, more so than he's ever felt before, he's just like, his whole entire being is just so broken up about this boy having hurt him. So he tells his parents, yes, I want to go to the UK for high school. He completely leaves Japan behind and this other boy in order to try and reinvent himself. Now, it's been 10 years. He's now in his 20s. And very bitter about love. He doesn't ever want to fall in love again. He doesn't really believe that true love exists. He hasn't quite gotten over his issues, let's put it mildly. But at the same time, he's also having issues with work because his parents own a publishing house, a publishing company. And he loves books and loves being an editor, but a lot of his co-workers call him, like, just, you know, he's the heir to the company or whatever. He's the boss's son, so they don't think that he's gotten to his position on merit. So in order to disprove that, he quits from his parents' publishing house. He goes to a rival publishing house, hoping to become a literature editor there, like he was at his first job. And they say, sorry, we don't really have any options open with literature right now. But how about the shoujo manga department? It's doing really well. We have a new boss there. He's just completely turned the whole place around. And Ritsu, of course, is like, oh, he knows nothing about manga, for one. And shoujo manga very often is very focused on love. So that, again, is not something he understands very well. But he's not a quitter. If nothing else, he's not a quitter. So he's like, sure, I'll do that. He hates his boss. His coworkers are all right, but the work is hard. It's demanding. The manga cycle, as we know from various things, is just brutal on both creators and the editors who have to push out something every week or every month. And so he quickly, although not understanding the work, kind of finds a point of pride of wanting to be good at this work. And for as much as he dislikes his boss's attitude and personality, he really does respect him as a co-worker, as his boss, and being able to do the work that he does. After a couple weeks working there, though, he discovers that his boss, who he hates, is actually the boy who broke his heart 10 years ago. He didn't immediately realize because his name's different and all sorts of things, but very quickly after they realize, this older man now, is very keen on getting their relationship started again. They find out, or after discussing it, they realize that this argument was over, like, totally misinterpretation, and they've both been very, very heartsick and, like, pining over the other person for all of these years, and now should be a great opportunity to get back together. But if Ritsu's nothing else, he's not a quitter. He was committed to never falling in love again, and despite this boy who he loved for so long and has been hung up on for so long, now saying, hey, let's get back together. We both obviously still care about each other, you know, and now we're older, and now things can work out, and we're smarter, we can communicate, and we work together, and all sorts of things. He's making too much sense, and Ritsu's saying, no, not interested, but we know as the reader that that's not true. Inside, he doesn't want to admit it. He doesn't want to say he's in love, but we know that if it was he wouldn't put up with all of the forceful kissing, or all of the nights spent together, or the meals shared, or any of this other stuff, if it wasn't with this guy who he still has feelings for but doesn't want to admit. And that's basically the series. It's 14 volumes of Ritsu being like, no, I don't like this guy. And then in his brain, he's like, no, I do. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't. I'm not going to admit it. What's this feeling? I am so... He annoys me, but also, what's this feeling? And you're like, oh my god. And yeah, that's it. And then you have your second couple, which is the best, is Kisa and Yukina, who is one of the other editors and an art student, university art student, and they're really fun romance. I think they're my favorite couple. I do like Ritsu and Takano, I will admit. But yeah, I mean, this is one of those series where it's like, okay, there's a lot of will they, won't they? Not will they, won't they. There's a lot of like humming and hawing of the actual confession, interspersed with like very graphic sex scenes, and then but also like just general tropey romance drama. And it's, as I said, it's not good. If you're wanting a BL series and you're new to the genre and you're wanting some of the best, this is not one that I would recommend. But I do like it, and I have a soft spot in my heart for it, and for all of its cheesy, popcorn, dumb, just whatever parts of it. I still avidly read this. Whenever I get a new volume, it's the first thing I read out of all of the other stuff, all the award-winning series, all of this like highbrow art. No, whatever it is, if I get a stack of books on one day, like a bunch of stuff ships out all at once, and I receive it all at once, and World's Greatest First Love is in there, that is the one that I read first. So I don't know what that says about me, but it is a good time if you know what you're getting into. Next we have some Tokyo Pop series, BL. The first is a single volume story, like Two Peas in a Pod by Goro Kanbei. This is the same creator as Don't Call Me Dirty / Don't Call Me Daddy, which I loved, by the way. I love that series a lot. This is about two classmates who have a lot of similarities, a lot of things in common, and they become quite good friends. They start spending more time together, but one starts to realize his feelings for the other, but the other gets a girlfriend, and so there's a lot of mixed up emotion from that, and it's really good. It's really good. Goro Kanbei's works have just been all hits for me. I didn't enjoy it as much as Don't Call Me Dirty / Daddy, but it was still really good. It hit so many really crucial points. It executed things really, really well. I liked the development of the relationship over the course of the book. I really liked the matter-of-fact, ending of it. I liked the female characters in this book as well. They were done really, really wonderfully. Again, always a plus in BL, because that can be very hit or miss. And yeah, just really good. I really liked this one. Yeah, another great BL from Tokyo Pop. They have a lot of good ones, and there's not much for me to complain about aside from just the sheer fact that it's Tokyo Pop. But yeah, if you're wanting a friends to lovers sort of story and you don't mind a bit of drama, check out Like Two Peas in a Pod by Goro Kanbei. It is very good. Single volume series I wasn't thrilled by, and this is The Treasure of the King and the Cat by Yu Kajika, another Tokyo Pop title from their Love Love line. This is a fantasy adventure comedy thing. I mean, technically BL, it has maybe couples in it, but it really is very light on the romance aspect, so don't go into this one expecting a lot of romantic development, because there really isn't any of that whatsoever. So this is broken into two interconnected stories. You have the first story about this guy who is a half elf and also a very well-known magician, wizard, whatever, and they help a young boy with an affliction affecting his mother, and then The second half, or well, the majority of the book is about the young king of this fantasy world country and his, his like closest aide, knight, whatever, who they have feelings for each other, sort of, but nothing ever really comes of that. But people have been disappearing in the city, and the king goes out in disguise and tries to find out what is going on, and they discover that cat shenanigans. It's a longer story. There's more that's fleshed out. Both of these characters from the first story show up as well, namely because this is the other the brother of the king, so he's the prince. And you know, that's what it is. They solve the problem. Lots of fantasy and kind of magic. It has a pretty okay ending, but I wasn't like, yeah, do not go into this if you're expecting romance or relationship development whatsoever. It is the loosest sense of BL that there is, and I really dislike using the word shonenai, but it really feels like one of those titles that was never classified as a BL, but people, read queer subtext into it. They ship the main characters, stuff like that. It feels more like one of those versus something that would come out of like a typical BL magazine. It's not a bad series. I didn't find the comedy particularly funny. The magic like fantasy world is fine. There's nothing that new or interesting about it, but it's done decently well. And the second longer story does have more going on in it, but wasn't particularly for me. I just wasn't that impressed. It's not one that I'm probably ever going to reread, so it's probably going on the sale pile, to be quite honest. It's not one that, I feel the need to hang on to comparatively to everything else that I actually do have cluttering my shelves. To end on a downer, I do have my last manga for this month was another Tokyo Pop title. This one is the first of an ongoing series, and that is our Not So Lonely Travel Guide by Mone Sorai, about this couple who are traveling the world together, and discovering new places and countries. And once they finish their world trip, they are going to get married. And so there's a larger implication that one of them is recovering from some pretty major health issues. They're also trying to come to terms with maybe family who aren't super supportive. But so this is basically a travelogue between this couple who are kind of also just getting comfortable with being themselves and fully accepting each other and not caring about other people's opinions of them as well. It's really good. I loved this so much. I cannot wait for more. I love the characters. I'm a globetrotter myself, so it's wonderful to see so much lovingly rendered different countries. It's just so nice. I really enjoyed it, and the actual relationship stuff. These two characters, their conversations and their personalities are again very much an opposites attract sort of dynamic, but it's so good. It's so good, and I love it. So in this particular volume, the opening chapters whilst they're in Japan, about to depart for their big trip, but then we also have them visiting Thailand, India, and Georgia, the country, not the state, obviously. And it's just fantastic. I really love this. You get little snippets about each of these countries and these cities that they visit and the various people that they meet, the places that they go. It's so good. It's so good. Another one that is just really wonderful from Tokyo Pop, and I'm chagrined, but like I will continue to buy this because this is some top tier quality stuff. Um, yeah, I just really appreciate the series. I really appreciate how these characters interact with each other as well. They're quite funny, and their relationship feels very normal. You can tell that they have their personal whole hang-ups and stuff, and they have stuff that they still need to work through to get closer with. But I mean, there's a old saying in that, you know, before you marry someone, you should travel with them, because if you can survive a trip with somebody, whether that be, but if you can survive a trip together, whether it be with friends, family, your partner, then you really are like, that's the truest test of a relationship, because traveling can be stressful. You know, you can act very short-tempered because of that, or, you know, anxious. You notice habits that people have more so when you're traveling, and it's not convenient for them to be doing things. Sometimes you travel with people and you're like, wow, you are a very different person from me, and that's kind of inconvenient. Not to say that you're a bad person, it just means that, you know, we got to adjust our plans because of this, or, oh, are you really hungry again? We only ate an hour ago. Or why do you need to do, like, curl your hair every morning, or whatever else it may be, right? There's a lot of stress when you're traveling, and so I think it's a wonderful idea for them to be traveling the world, and then once that's done, once they've seen everything together, they've discovered lots and experienced so much and made so many memories and proven that they can survive that, to then get married and to be, you know, together and happy and secure, and with somebody that they understand they've got their back, or they understand that, you know, they'll be there for them, and they've done so much together, and they hopefully will do so much more together. It's really good. It's really good. Tokyo Pop, dang it. I don't want to keep monetarily supporting you, but I will, because you keep putting out good stuff. Yeah, absolutely check out our Not So Lonely Planet travel guide by Mone Sorai. It's very, very wonderful. I have some light novels that I got, a couple of these too. So firstly, from Yen Press, we have the volume that I was waiting for from my initial order, volume 4 of Sword Art Online. This is the second half of Fairy Dance by Reki Kawahara. I said this before, but I did want to give this light novel series a try. I do enjoy the anime for what it is. I've never been like one to be straight up hateful of this series, but it is one, because of its popularity, caught a lot of slack. But now, how how young and innocent we were then. Nowadays, light novels, the amount of just terrible protagonists, terrible people protagonists, and the amount of people who love them, is just rough, guys. So, I did want to try this. It's obviously popular for a reason. I know exactly what to expect from Sword Art Online. I've seen 3 seasons. I've seen the first season, second season, the movie, Gun Gale Online. I haven't watched Alicization yet, which is next on the list. I do have the first half of that on disc to watch. But yeah, like, I have my problems with it. It's not perfect. It's not my go-to light novel series. It's not my go-to kind of genre. But I do like Kirito, and I like the supporting characters. Asuna's interesting. I think the idea of this, like, near future where virtual reality and like AR and things like that is already happening, right? Like this is already happening, but this kind of was preemptive to the current state of affairs, and I think it just makes sense. I like, and I've said this before in regards to other series that are maybe not popular either, Robotics Notes most notably, but I like near future sci-fi type of stuff, and although this isn't technically sci-fi, the technological implementation of all of this, I think that this series is set in like originally, like the Sword Art Online storyline was set in like 2023, and I absolutely could believe that, you know, these dive helmet VR machines would be super popular in gaming. I could absolutely believe that some nihilistic game developer would somehow hack the hit system and make it so that if you die in the game, you die in real life. And the implementation and the acceptance of AR and VR and all of these things, yeah, absolutely could see this happening, which is less so the case when you're talking about something that's like purely an isekai or whatever else. You know, is it generally dumb wish fulfillment fantasy? Yeah. Does it mean that it's not good? No, I think the execution of it's good. I like Kirito as a character, as I said. I like the fact that despite he does have many girls surrounding him, he really only has an interest in his actual girlfriends, that he's just generally a nice guy and wants to help people and just play games and help people and hang out with his girlfriend, which, I mean, honestly, that's so inoffensive. What a nice person. That just seems like a normal thing. He's not wanting to have slaves. He's not trying to cause a race war. Wasn't reincarnated as a cute version of some terrible historical figure. You know, he's just a Japanese teenage boy who loves video games, loves his girlfriend, and other people keep trying to mess that up. So, like, yeah, it's not the greatest thing that has ever been bequeathed upon humanity, but it's fun, and if you know what you're expecting from it, it's one of those things that, especially the anime you watch, and it's not like, it doesn't demand a lot from you. You know what to expect. It's just alright. It's just a good time. And, you know, at least I can care about the characters and not feel guilty. But yeah, I haven't read this or any of Sword Art yet. But I have the first 3 story arcs, which is obviously like oh my gosh, whatever, like the Sword Art main story. Then we have this, which is part of Fairy Dance, the second half, and then the third one is Gun Gale Online, I believe. Maybe I'm being stupid and have forgotten another arc. No, maybe Mother's Rosario. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. I have the first 3 arcs-ish of the series, so I can actually read them now. Better late than never, I say. The novel that I got this month is one that I am much more adamant about, like, encouraging people to read because I love this shit, is Baccano. This is volume 16, 1932 summer, Man in the Killer by Ryogo Narita. This is the most recent English volume of this ongoing light novel series from Narita. We recently got Durara SH, which is, I think, a sequel to the main series. But yeah, Baccano is my shit. I love it so much, and I highly encourage everyone to read it. I'd say watch it as well, although it's been out of print for years on disc and it's not streaming anywhere. There's also a manga, which is only 3 volumes, and I think adapts the first novel, which is alright. Not, like, brilliant, but it's fine. I don't own that. I have it digitally. Well, I mean, I own it, but I don't own it physically. Because, again, I'm not really always a fan of light novel, manga adaptations of light novels. But yeah, I mean, I haven't actually read this one, which is a bit of a surprise, because I normally do read Bakano as soon as I get the book, but it's been a rough couple weeks for me. I've had a lot going on in my personal life, in my work life, so I just straight up haven't had time to sit down and read and enjoy things. So I do look forward to getting into this, especially this weekend. It's rainy and storming, so perfect reading weather, in my opinion. But Bakano is a wonderful, exciting, thrilling, hilarious story about a bunch of immortals running around throughout history, namely in 1930s New York and Chicago and LA. Like 1930s America, Prohibition era America. So there's a lot of gangsters, there's a lot of bootleggers, there's a lot of crime going on, which is a-okay. We then also have some storylines that follow a certain group of these immortals before they were immortal, i.e. back in the 18th century. And then we also have some quote-unquote present-day storylines, i.e. some of these characters in the future times of 2002. And they're all great. They're all wonderful. There's a million characters, just like in Durarara, if you have read or watched that one. But always really distinct. You're never going to get confused about who's talking, who's saying what, who anyone is. They're just... Narita has such a wonderful, wonderful way with writing characters and creating just totally unique weirdos that all occupy the same space, and it's just wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. I cannot wait to get to this one, and I encourage people to check the series out if you haven't. Novels, we have a J-novel release. This is Ascendance of a Bookworm, I'll Do Anything to Become a Librarian, Part 3, Adopted Daughter of an Archduke, Volume 1, which is the 8th volume of the series. I don't know, okay, we're in the 3rd arc. Main is M-Y-N-E in the novel, is no longer herself. A lot of shit happened at the end of the last arc. She's no longer in the temple in the same capacity that she was. And now she's kind of had to adjust for things, and the story, it gets shaken up once again. But if you have not yet watched the wonderful anime that is the series, hasn't been adapted in the anime, just to be clear. But this is the story of it's an isekai tale of a young woman, Japanese woman, very bookish, very in love with books. Her only dream was to become a librarian. Now she has done so, or the same day that she got her job to be a librarian, she dies under a stack of falling books or bookshelves or something. And is reincarnated into the young body of a little girl in this strange fantasy world where books, or at least books to the capacity that we understand them in the modern day, do not exist. And so she is struggling, and obviously she wants to continue her dream of being a librarian and being able to read books to her leisure. But in order to do so, she has to establish the printing press and the publishing industry and all these things, and raise the literacy rate in society. But to do that, she needs money, which she doesn't have because she's a poor child from a poor family. And And she's also really sickly, so she's always getting sick if she even runs too fast. So she has a lot going on in her life right now. But despite that, she's able to slowly but surely start creating the books that she so dearly loves. And I really, I love this story so much. Mine, I think initially is a little bit of a pain in the butt, just because she is very selfish, but very quickly grows out of that. She becomes much more self-assured, but also much more conscientious of other people. She absolutely started this whole thing in order to read books for her own selfishness, but once she's in this society, once she's actually involved, once she's working with people, once she's having to interact with people, which she never did in her original life, she's a much better person. She's just straight up a better person than she was when she arrived, or before she died. It's really interesting. I love a lot of the cast in the series. It's funny. It can be frustrating. It has a lot of dark themes as well, just putting that out there, especially the second arc. And it just gets cooler as well. Like the first story arc, she's like trying to make paper out of wood fibers and mud and stuff. And then by certain story arcs, there's like what is it, lightning spears and things, and you're like, hell yeah, that's really cool. But it's one of those, I mean, again, this was one that started as a web novel, so it's horrendously long, and later got printed into, actual books, light novel books in Japan, and which is obviously now being adapted in English by J-Novel. So this is a very, 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 very long series in Japanese. I think it's complete. I think the web novel's complete. But yeah, the actual light novel printing is not complete, and I think that's currently at like 27 volumes or something. There's 8 or 9 story arcs, and each story arc gets longer than the previous. So yeah, that's fun. But don't let that put you off Ascendance of a Bookworm, because it's really wonderful. I encourage you to try it, even if you're not a fan of isekai, if you don't think that there's much going on in the genre. I really enjoy this one. It's very fun. Again, not super problematic. I mean, you could make the argument that, not that mine or the original character was white, but like the white savior. Oh yes, I must educate the uneducated masses. Look at me. Aren't I a good person? Kind of stuff that does crop up in light novels a lot as well, especially like the food ones. It's like, oh yes, the absolute amazingness of Japanese food. I'm like, it's good, but also it's not like the be all end all above any other cultural food. Jesus. It has elements of, educating the savages or whatever, but it's also not, it's not that, right? It's not that. It's just more so an exploration of publishing and sort of the publishing history as well, because it follows very similarly to actual publishing, much more sped up, but transitioning from books having to be handwritten and therefore only the most wealthy and elite being able to afford them and being able to read them, versus after the creation of the printing press, mass publication becoming way easier, and therefore books not costing so much, so then people of lower classes being able to buy them, and then thus learning how to read. And so education, it's just really good. I liked this book a lot. And I like the series overwhelmingly a lot as well. Again, big change from the last story arc as it was with between the first and second, but oh man, yeah, the end of the second arc was rough. I cried. There's a lot. It was pretty heavy. But always wonderful to revisit this world, and I cannot wait for the next one. Next we have like some actual comics, non-manga comics. I know I don't typically include them in my pickups videos, but I also don't typically buy a lot of them, so I thought, well, I'm changing up things this month, and if I do get additional things, I'm just gonna chuck them on to the end of the video. The video is already so long as it is. What's another 20 minutes or longer, to be quite honest. But first I got the hardcover edition of Ryan Andrews's This Was Our Pact, about two classmates, well, a bunch of classmates who agree to try and follow these lanterns that are released by the town every year, see where they go. But all of his other friends, our main character, all of his other friends like chicken out and don't end up going, aside from the one weird kid, which is obviously our protagonist isn't super thrilled about, but they still decide to go on this adventure together to see where these lanterns go. And I haven't read this one like in its entirety yet, but it's so beautiful. And from the moment that I saw the art style when it was announced by First Second, because I do follow their social media, I was immediately captivated. I just was like, this sounds like exactly my thing, and the colors are great, the art is great. I've been meaning to get it for a while as well. It's been out for a little bit. It's just a beautifully presented book, and I really do enjoy First Second's. For everything that I've read from First Second, I've really enjoyed their stuff. Out of their current catalog, I own this. I own The Prince and the Dressmaker, and I own Bloom as well. And they have a couple other things that they put out that I'm wanting to get. They have a couple things in their pipeline that they've announced that I'm wanting to get. Just very often, comics kind of fall to the wayside for me because manga is sort of my priority. In saying that, I did get a lot of comics this month as well. So who knows? Maybe that change will or the shift will change soon. I have actually three books from the same comic series. I got this as a Kickstarter reward. I backed the third Kickstarter. I guess timing just didn't work for me with the first two, because I followed this webcomic for a while, and I'm really hoping that this creator puts out her first webcomic, reprints it again, because I would want it. But this is Mina Sundberg's Stand Still, Stay Silent, Volume 1. I also have Volume 2. And I also Volume 3, which is the most current, which was the one that I backed for, or what the Kickstarter was for. These are all hardcover editions of this comic following Nordic mythology, and it's so beautiful. I love this series so much. I highly recommend it if you haven't tried it before. The artwork is gorgeous as well. Look how beautiful. Look how beautiful. Yeah, it's obviously, you guys know that I'm a sucker for folklore and mythology and fairy tales and supernatural. And I say supernatural, but like, folklore is probably the best explanation of the stuff I'm most interested in, because I've always been a fan of mythology. I've always been a fan of history as well, and really folklore is the amalgamation of those two things, right? So yeah, this is just an overwhelmingly lovely book. book and comic, and it's still ongoing. Yeah, I encourage you to give it a try if you like these things and if it sounds interesting. And the books are beautiful. Definitely worth the wait. Definitely worth the expense. And really happy that I could finally actually support this creator on Kickstarter as well. So yeah, Stand Still, Stay Silent, books 1, 2, and 3. Speaking of Kickstarter, although this book wasn't one that I kickstarted because it no longer needs Kickstarter. It was picked up by a publisher. I did kickstart the first volume of this, and that's how I was introduced to this comic. I now follow it on Tapas, one of the webcomic apps. And it's also how I discovered this creator's work. She also has various novels which also fit into or take place in the same world as this comic. And that is, of course, Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. This is volume 4. This is a completed in 5-book story about Charlie and Ben, who are high school friends initially, and then boyfriends, and man, it's super sweet. Oh, it's so good. It's such a wonderful coming of age. This particular volume, and this story in general, deals with a lot of very serious topics that do affect teens, namely mental health, eating disorders, self-harm, but also things like personal family issues, divorce, homophobia, obviously, because we do have our main characters in a gay relationship, and unsupportive family, and also supportive family. It's not all doom and gloom. And also just how hard growing up can be, and sometimes when you do care about someone, you feel like it's your responsibility for them to feel better, or to look after them, or to save them, quote unquote, and how that can be really difficult, like impossible. It's impossible for one person to completely fix another, especially when they are suffering from mental health issues or from personal issues in their family, and how important it is to have a community and a support system of many people, and that's really what this particular volume is about. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I felt very bad for both of our characters because it's rough. The events in this particular book are rough. But yeah, it's beautiful. Definitely recommend it. And as I said, Alice Oseman's other books, like her actual young adult novels, take place in the same world, so there's no any real particular order to read them, and this kind of is a prequel to her first novel, Solitaire, which focuses on Charlie's sister, older sister, Tori. Why did I say it like that? Tori. And yeah. So also the novels don't always, like, they're not really these two aren't the focus. They are additional characters to this world, but a lot of their friends in the comic or family are important people in the novels. So it's kind of nice to see familiar faces and to see how they're going at various points in their life as well. But dang it, this is a super good comic. Highly recommended, especially if you like, queer couples, LGBT positive stories. It's one of those, and it's very good. It's also set in England. I don't know if I said that. So it's British. So if that's something that would encourage you to read it, check it out. So segue into the fact that I bought all of Alice Oseman's novels from said novel verse that I didn't already own. So I do already have Solitaire. I do also already have Radio Silence, which focuses on I don't remember her name, but their friend who shows up, Aled, is one of the main characters of that series. And then so we have the other novels that she's done, which is I Was Born for This, and then her most recent novel, Loveless, which has gotten a lot of buzz recently. I think it's also, especially for coming into Pride Month, that's another one with, I believe, a queer main character, LGBT main character. I've seen, like, my local bookstores and such promote it as that. I haven't had the chance to read either of these, but it wouldn't put it past Osman, because obviously I just talked for 5 minutes about her gay comic. And then I also got the novellas of this, from this, in relation to Solitaire in particular. So these were written after her first novel. So it's This Winter, which focuses on Tori and why do I keep saying it like that? Tori and Charlie, and Oliver, I think, is the youngest brother. Christmas time, some family issues there, and is, of course, kind of related to everything else. And then we also have Nick and Charlie, which is, as it says, this is literally a love story, and is basically the novella that predates the comic of these two, and their relationship and them falling in love. Yeah, I haven't read any of these, so I can't give my opinions on them, but it's solid YA stuff. Very good at handling, again, pretty hard to talk about topics that do affect teens. So you may want to do a little bit of preemptive research if you are particularly sensitive to things like discussion of eating disorders or mental health or self-harm. But if you don't mind that, or if you don't have an issue with those things, then I do recommend, and you're a YA fan, you read young adult stuff, then I would encourage you to try this. Solitaire, I think, is obviously, being the first of the story of the series, is probably the least well developed, which is understandable. But I think it just means that as a writer, Osman has just gotten better and better over the years, and I think more involved and has more understanding of the characters that she's developed as well. But yeah, really, really happy to have these. I've been meaning to get them forever, and I think with the recent release of Loveless, I just took the opportunity to jump on all of them. And these two, the novellas, have just recently been printed as well, so yeah, I kind of just decided to get them all at once. Finally, for the last novel that I got was another one that I was super excited for. I bought this so long ago, and the post just took forever to send it to me. But the highly anticipated fourth book in the Wayfarer series, The Galaxy and the Ground Within by Becky Chambers. I love this book so much. This series, well, I haven't read this book, but I love this series so much, and I really love Becky Chambers' version of the far future. I am self-admittedly not a huge sci-fi fan, but this is what got me back into sci-fi and really giving sci-fi a proper chance. And I'm still pretty picky about it. There's a lot that I dislike or am not interested in reading, but man, I adore this series. All of them. The second book in particular, Close and Common Circuit, Close and Common Orbit? Why did I think Circuit? Is absolutely phenomenal. But all three of the preceding books have been really, really good. And I doubt that this one will be bad. If it is, that'll be a real disappointment. But I don't think it will be. As I said, I haven't read this one yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. And if you want further thoughts on my novel impressions and things like that, I am hoping to do like a kind of vlog style or quarterly update on the novels that I read in a little more of a lax type of video. So if you're interested in that, those will be coming hopefully in the near future. But yeah, been waiting for this one for ages. Ordered it like 2 months ago, shipped out like 3 weeks ago, and it got to me 2 days ago. So it's definitely going on the to read pile, so I read it ASAP, because it is, I just need more. I need more of this world. Although I will say, I think this is the last one for the series. At least the last one solicited. I don't know. I think it is. It has been called the finale. Who knows though? I wouldn't be upset if there was more. Just putting that out into the universe. But also, if this is the end, then I hope it ends well, marvelously. But yeah, that I don't really have any first impressions, but I really just do love Chambers's portrayal of the future and space travel and intergalactic, inter-alien interactions, how very, very different alien communities interact with each other, and how humanity has carved its spot into that over centuries. It's beautiful, and kind of reminds me a little bit of something like Heterogenea Linguistico, or even like Delicious in Dungeon, which are both fantasy series, but approach an unknown with a very human element, with a very explorative crossing of cultures, meeting of cultures and discussion and understanding. It's really, yeah, I got this recommendation, like the book, the first book, A Small and Angry Planet, or Travel to a Small and Angry Planet, whatever it is, and people recommended it because it really is like a slice of life science fiction story that focuses on the characters more than like some grand space war, or, you know, all of the myriad of science or whatever that's going on. It's more about the people, and it's just done really well. So, and I also had to buy this one online because nowhere, literally nowhere in my city could I find a hardcover copy of this book. They just have the paperback, which is also a different size from the other ones. It's just weird, and I'm a bit anal when it comes to shelf consistency. Not nearly as bad as some people, but I dislike mixing hardcover and paperback books, especially of the same series. So yeah, it was kind of goes without saying that I would have to get this one in hardcover because the other three I have in hardcover. So cannot wait to read this one, and that's a really weird collector-y mindset, but cannot wait to read this. That's everything. Congrats if you made it to the end. Let me know your opinions on adding like novels and comics and stuff to the end of the video. I know it's the first time I've done that, but I thought, why not? I don't buy them that often anyway, so might as well. Let me know your thoughts, your feelings, your impressions, whatever else you love, hate, or are just neutral on any of the titles that I talked about today. Leave me a comment. I do read them. I do always appreciate them and do try to respond to as many as I can, and read them if nothing else. I should have the latest podcast episode posted already on the channel, so if you're wanting to hear my thoughts on manga 5 volumes or less, then that's on the channel, and also on podcasting platforms for my podcast Read Right to Left, which I co-host with Ray from Whimsical Pictures, my very, very good friend and wonderful co-host. As always, my social media should be linked down below. You can follow me on Collecting G or at Collecting G, all one word. If you're wanting to talk to me directly or whatever else, follow me for all my day-to-day reading and watching and interests and all that. I don't know why you would, but I'm on there. And otherwise, I should have some other videos planned, namely some first impression stuff, as well as some full series reviews as well. A couple things have ended here, so hopefully, that'll be interesting to you guys. Yeah, but aside from that, thank you so much for putting up with me. It is now nighttime, as you can probably tell because of the lighting change. It was a long one. This was a many different takes for this particular video. But I hope that you all stay happy, healthy, look after yourself, be kind to yourself and to others. I will catch you in the next video, guys. Bye till then.